and we will go from there. So, right, thanks everyone for joining. Don't forget to hit that like button, bring more people to it. Share with your friends on social media if you can. That'd be a great help. That'd be much appreciated. It really helps out the channel. I will catch you when I start.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank the Minister very much for that answer. And I very much welcome the Government's increased spending in Wales because, first of all, it's good for jobs and opportunity. But those in uniform, whether it be in the Army, the Royal Air Force or the Royal Navy, come from all over the United Kingdom. They come from Wales, they come from Scotland, they come from Northern Ireland. So does the Minister acknowledge that the percentage share of new spend in defence is done in proportion to those who serve in uniform, those who live in the country, or for the companies that are already involved in the defence sector? Thank you.
Well, Mr. Speaker, as I'm sure he knows, Northern Ireland benefits very considerably from companies like Thales bidding into that defence fund, and I know that for many, many years there have been many excellent service personnel from Northern Ireland. I'm sure that he will be looking after them when they become veterans.
Secretary of State Minns Davies.
Given the precarious global affairs, Conservatives believe that our defence and defence jobs should be a #1 priority for the Labour-controlled Wales office. Major defence companies such as General Dynamics in Merthyr and Caerphilly and Takeda in Ceredigion, among others, await answers. Mr. Speaker, Plaid is a party that wants to break up the cherished union, withdraw Wales's full membership from NATO and surrender our nuclear defence system. Is this minister seriously concerned by this? And if so, will she rule out her Labour Senedd colleagues ever doing a coalition with the Nationalists in an expanded Cardiff Bay?
Well, I'm sure, Mr. Speaker, that I don't need to remind the honourable lady that defence is a reserved matter. Decisions will be taken in this UK Parliament, and that it is up to the Welsh Senedd how they form a government following the elections next year.
Sarah Butch.
Four, please, Mr. Speaker.
Secretary of State.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We have transformed the relationship with Welsh Government, and our two Labour governments are delivering on the priorities of the people of Wales. Together, we've delivered a record-breaking budget settlement for the Welsh Government. NHS waiting lists have fallen 4 months in a row. Tens of thousands of new jobs have been secured through inward investment, and pay rises are helping people across Wales through the record increases to the national and living wage.
Diolch yn fawr. Welsh Labour have been in power in Cardiff Bay for 26 years. In that time, Wales has fallen further and further behind its nearest neighbour in the Union in almost every key devolved area. Welsh household incomes are lower than in England. Welsh employment rates are lower than in England. Welsh life expectancy is lower than in England. Is the Secretary of State proud of her party's record in Wales?
Can I thank the honourable member for her question? Actually, the positive impact our UK and Welsh Labour governments are having is clear in how the Welsh economy is changing. Employment has increased significantly in Wales, unemployment and economic inactivity have fallen, and real total wages have increased right across the UK.
Alex Berry-Scott.
Mr Speaker, the safety and maintenance of coal tips are a totemic issue in Wales, including in my constituency in Cardiff West. And this clearly, the relationship between Welsh Government and this Labour Government with the funding given to coal tips at the last budget signifies the importance of the union between our two governments. Can the Secretary of State therefore help illustrate to me why Plaid Cymru, when given the opportunity to vote on this in the Senedd in March, voted against coal tip funding?
Can I thank my honourable friend for his question, and he raises an important point. Ensuring coal tips across Wales remain safe is of the utmost importance, and unlike the Conservative Government, we committed £25 million funding this year for essential work to keep tips maintained and safe. So quite why Plaid Cymru voted against that additional funding, and the Conservatives in the Senedd, is beyond me. They need to explain it to our former coal mining communities.
Secretary of State Mims Davies.
Does the Minister prefer peanuts, cashew nuts, or simply scraps for Wales? The fabled two Labour governments in lockstep is simply a myth for voters. Changing rail classifications and short-changing Welsh communities is a true reality. Is the Minister concerned by today's reported peanuts? Because when did she become aware of just over £400 million, the poultry settlement to come to Wales? How will it be split to Welsh Government? How does she think it compares to our government's £740 million on rail alone? And if so, what specific action did she take to argue for Wales and its fair share and its place in the Union?
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Her party was in government for 14 years when Wales got 1% of rail enhancement budget when it has 11% of the whole UK network. Her party are responsible for the historic underfunding of the Welsh Rail, and we'll hear from the Chancellor this afternoon about what this government is going to do about it.
Right, David Chadwick, Liberal Democrat spokesperson.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. The border we share with England is a very porous one, and that's of critical importance to our agricultural community in mid-Wales, particularly livestock farmers whose supply chain reaches from one side to the other. She'll be aware that the farming community is very concerned about the outbreak of blue tongue. The Royal Welsh Show has already had to say no to entrants from England. So will she meet with me and the livestock markets affected in my constituency to help find a solution for them?
Can I thank the honourable member for his question? Obviously, the Royal Welsh Show is a landmark event in the calendar in Wales every year. I'd be very happy to offer him a meeting with the Minister at the Wales office responsible for farming.
Ruth Jones, Chair of the Select Committee.
Question number 5, please, Mr Speaker.
Minister.
With your permission, Mr Speaker, I will answer questions 5 and 13 together. The UK Labour Government is putting Wales at the forefront of its mission to make the UK a clean energy superpower, creating jobs, lowering energy bills and raising living standards for families across Wales. Only last month, my Right Honourable friend, the Secretary of State, announced a £12.5 million funding to support green advanced manufacturing and the National Net Zero Skills Centre of Excellence in Port Talbot.
Mr Speaker, Wales has a phenomenal tidal range which promises green growth and industrial employment to Wales and beyond. The Severn Estuary Commission has completed its recommendations and tidal lagoons are ready to go. So what steps is the Secretary of State taking with other Cabinet colleagues to ensure tidal will play a prominent role in the transition to clean energy?
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker. The Government remains open to considering well-developed proposals for harnessing tidal range energy, and the National Energy System Operator, NESO, has launched a research innovation project to model the impacts and value of tidal range. And I'm very pleased to be able to tell my honourable friend that we're expecting the report from this work tomorrow, and we will be considering its findings. More broadly, Mr Speaker, Wales has huge potential for green jobs, and in April the Prime Minister announced a £300 million boost for Great British Energy to invest in offshore wind supply, and Wales is very well placed to benefit from this.
Matt Rodder.
Question 13, Mr Speaker. Wales has an enormous role to play in the rollout of green and clean energy, which will benefit all the residents of both Wales and the UK. Can the Minister explain the steps that she has taken to roll out this important work in Wales?
Thank you. I thank my honourable friend for his question. Wales does have a huge role to play in our clean energy mission and has excellent resources and a skilled workforce. We are supporting innovative renewable technologies like the tidal stream on Anglesey and the floating offshore wind in the Celtic Sea, which has the potential to deliver up to 5,000 new jobs.
Anne Davies.
Mr Llefarydd, green energy deserves green transmission. So will the Minister commit to undergrounding any new electric transmission in Wales?
Well, I commend the honourable member for her campaigning on this issue, but as I'm sure that she does understand, the cost of undergrounding is very significant, and so we have said very clearly that our position is that overhead lines should generally be the starting presumption, except for in nationally designated landscapes.
Graham Stewart.
Mr Speaker, people of all ages welcome Wales's role in creating a clean energy superpower in this country. But pensioners in particular, of course, had to go through last winter, freezing cold, tens of thousands more going to A&E. So will the Minister, who we all know is a very decent member of the Labour frontbench, do what the Chancellor refused to do? And apologise to those pensioners who lost that funding when they needed it most.
I should just remind the House, Mr Speaker, that we did maintain the triple lock, which gave pensioners a boost of over £400 this spring. And as he well knows, pensioners will again benefit from the winter fuel allowance.
Next, please, Mr Speaker.
Mr Speaker, with your permission, I'll answer questions 6 and 11 together. Since July, we have driven over £1.5 billion private investment into Wales, delivering hundreds and hundreds of jobs. Last month, I was delighted to welcome Knauf's Insulation's new £170 million investment in Shotton. Our Welsh free ports and investment zones will unlock further private investment and deliver tens of thousands of jobs across all 4 corners of Wales. Last month, Lloyds Bank reported a significant increase in Welsh business confidence, and our industrial strategy will provide further confidence to invest in Wales.
Joanna Baxter.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. This Labour government is creating good, well-paid jobs across the whole of the UK, including in my constituency of Paisley and Renfrewshire South. Can the Secretary of State explain what she's doing in collaboration with Cabinet colleagues to make sure that these new jobs are genuinely good jobs with well-paid terms and conditions?
My honourable friend is right to highlight the Labour government's record for creating hundreds of thousands of new jobs across the UK. In Wales, we have 2 Labour governments working together to create new jobs in our green industries, advanced manufacturing and more. And I hope that Scotland also gets to experience the benefit of 2 Labour governments working in partnership when the SNP are resigned to the wilderness at next year's election.
Rachel Hopkins.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. The multi-billion pound deal to secure a new universal theme park in Bedfordshire is a major example of how this government is backing our crucial culture sector, creating new jobs and boosting living standards for my constituents and the wider region. Can the Secretary of State set out what the UK and Welsh Labour governments are doing to support the culture sector and create new jobs in Wales?
Well, I absolutely agree with my honourable friend. There will be many people in Wales looking forward to visiting the new Universal Studios in her constituency. And in Wales, we are supporting a thriving creative industries sector, which our industrial strategy has rightly identified as providing more potential for huge economic growth in the years ahead. We've confirmed £10 million to upgrade Venue Cymru in Conwy, the largest arts centre in Wales outside Cardiff, and £5 million to fund repair works to the Newport Transporter Bridge, both of which play a crucial role in the tourism economy. Welsh governments are also investing £12 million in the Elan Valley Lakes project through the Mid Wales Growth Deal.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and can I thank the Minister for her answer. Job creation in Wales is vitally important. Therefore, what representation has she made on the part of businesses in Wales and indeed the rest of GB who are now being forced to no longer supply businesses in Northern Ireland because of the outrageous and unnecessary parcel border that exists in the Irish Sea? What is she doing to right the wrongs of the ongoing damage of the Protocol and the Windsor Framework to our union and our economy?
She will know that this government's #1 mission is economic growth. We are creating jobs all around the country. We are building the economy. We have fixed the foundations, and we will hear more from the Chancellor this afternoon on what will happen in the years ahead.
Secretary of State Nims Davis.
Turbocharging the Welsh economy. Frankly, the economy at all is vital for social mobility and prosperity. We delivered 2 Welsh investment zones, 2 free ports and over £1 billion in extra funding, and helped over 2 million women into the job market across the UK. Yet the UK and Welsh Labour governments are undoing this work. Their job tax, their tourism tax, the 20-mile-per-hour default speed limit, acting as a hammer blow to business confidence, particularly in the hospitality sector. Mr. Speaker, now disgracefully, unemployment rate for young women in Wales up by 4.6%. Will the Minister join with me in calling for these damaging policies to be dropped so our young women can get into the workforce and progress?
Mr. Speaker, I'll say again that the positive impact our UK and Welsh Labour governments are having is clear in how the Welsh economy is changing. Employment has increased significantly in Wales. Unemployment and economic inactivity have both fallen, and real total wages have increased across the UK.
Number 7 from bench. Secretary of State.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yesterday we announced the biggest nuclear building programme in a generation. We are investing £14.2 billion to build Sizewell C, and we confirmed Rolls-Royce SMR as the preferred bidder to build the country's first small modular reactors. I met with the chair of Great British Nuclear last week to discuss how we maximise the opportunities for Wales from new nuclear projects, and I'll continue to work with the Energy Secretary and Welsh Government to ensure that Wales's supply chain and workforce benefit from this investment.
Jack Rankin.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Wales has incredible potential for next generation of nuclear, but Labour's announcement yesterday is a fraction of what is needed. Green baseload power, which stabilises our grid, enhances power generation as it has done before in Anglesey. Will the Minister give a clearer answer today to confirm that Wales will be a key part of new nuclear, building on Conservative work supporting Welsh nuclear, or will this be another failure to deliver for these communities under Labour?
Almost all of the UK's nuclear power stations are currently due to come offline in the 2030s. It's this government that's changing that, setting out our plan to end the years of Tory failure on nuclear, failure to invest, failure to deliver. We will deliver the biggest nuclear building programme in a generation.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In 14 years, the party opposite delivered no new nuclear anywhere in the country, including in Wales. So would the Secretary of State agree with me that this Labour government is committed to delivering energy security, good jobs and lower bills for families across Wales?
Can I thank my honourable friend for her question? She will know that the Sizewell C Consortium, for example, a group of over 200 nuclear supply chain companies, has a memorandum of understanding with the Welsh Government which will result in an investment of up to £900 million in the Welsh nuclear supply chain. Great British Energy Nuclear acquired the Wilver site last year. Wilver previously hosted a nuclear power plant and is the best potential site in the UK for new nuclear deployment.
Before we come to Prime Minister's questions, can I welcome in the gallery the President and the delegation to the French National Assembly. And also the knighthood to Sir Billy Boston. Anne Davies, Prime Minister's questions.
Question 1, please.
Mr. Speaker, can I first wish you a happy birthday for yesterday? And say that we're all delighted that Sir Billy Boston, a great British sporting icon, has received his richly deserved knighthood. Long overdue, if I may say, for him, but also for rugby league. Mr. Speaker, it's Carers Week, and I know the whole House will join me in celebrating the selfless dedication of our unpaid and young carers. This weekend also marks the 8th anniversary of the Grenfell Tower fire. We will honour the 72 men, women and children who lost their lives by delivering meaningful and lasting change, a country with safe and secure homes for everyone, and where justice is done for the Grenfell community. Mr. Speaker, acting alongside our allies, we've sanctioned individuals responsible for inciting appalling settler violence and expansion. We've done that to uphold human rights and defend the prospect of a two-state solution. We will continue to support all efforts to secure a ceasefire, the release of all hostages despicably held by Hamas, and the humanitarian aid that needs to surge in. Mr. Speaker, this morning I had meetings with ministerial colleagues and others. In addition to my duties in this House, I shall have further such meetings later today.
Davies.
Diolch, Mr Llefarydd. My constituent, Mr Michael O'Leary, was brutally murdered 5 years ago and his body was desecrated. Working alongside the honourable members for York Outer and Montgomeryshire and Glyndŵr, I've made a number of requests to discuss his and other victims' cases with ministers and to explore introducing legislation making the desecration of a body a criminal offence. Would the Prime Minister meet with Mr O'Leary's family, along with other victims' families, including April Jones of Machynlleth and Sarah Everard and Helen McCourt, to hear why they are calling for a new criminal offence of desecrating a body to be introduced?
Well, can I thank her for raising this horrific case and the other similar cases, and my thoughts, and I'm sure the thoughts of the whole House, are with Michael's family and all those affected by such vile crimes. I think we all need to listen to what they have to say. I know she's been working with the Honourable Friend for York Outer on this issue, and I pay tribute to her and all of those that are working so hard on this issue, and I'm sure the Justice Minister will be in touch at the first opportunity to take this forward, and I thank her again for raising a really important issue.
Simon Offer.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Prime Minister, in Gloucestershire, after 14 years, waiting lists for both physical and mental health are finally falling. So last week I hosted a round table with young people and heard how music and arts programmes like the fantastic Gloucestershire Music Works are transforming mental health outcomes. I also chaired a panel on comedy on prescription in South by Southwest with Lou Jackson and Jonathan Pye, utilising laughter to improve well-being and reduce waiting lists. So can I ask the Prime Minister to back our campaign in creative health and urge him to go further in reducing waiting lists for all patients? Thank you.
Can I comment? He's got great expertise. He's worked for many years in the NHS as a GP, and I support the work that he's doing. Our plan for change has cut waiting lists, as he points out, by almost 5,000 in his local trust, and we're going further, including through state-of-the-art radiotherapy machines rolled out across the country, Mr. Speaker. There's one going into his constituency, more scanners going to 27 other hospital trusts, including 2 hospitals in the constituency of the Leader of the Opposition. All made possible by the decisions that we've made, and I know she'll want to stand up and welcome that.
Leader of the Opposition, Kemi Bernal.
Mr. Speaker, perhaps the Prime Minister knows something I don't know. There's only one hospital in my constituency. But Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, since Labour took office, Mr. Speaker, inflation has nearly doubled, growth has halved, and unemployment has surged. Is this what the Prime Minister meant when he tweeted that the economy is improving?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, since the general election, 500,000 more people are in work. And I know she doesn't mention that. She's fixated on talking Britain down. We're investing in the future. Mr. Speaker, even in the last 2 weeks, the Strategic Defence Review, 30,000 new jobs building submarines. Yesterday, the Sizewell announcement, 10,000 new jobs. Tens of thousands of construction jobs building the social and affordable housing that was announced this morning. That's the difference that Labour makes in government.
Mr. Speaker, he must be talking about a different economy. All of us in this House heard about unemployment increasing. Unemployment has increased every month since Labour took office. Last year, he said he was taking the winter fuel payment away to balance the books. But the books are not balanced. In fact, they are worse. This year, the deficit is forecast to be £10 billion higher since the budget. Not since last year's election, since the budget. In what way are the books now balanced?
Mr. Speaker, she's obviously missed the interest rate cuts, the growth figures for earlier this year, the huge, the Strategic Defence Review, local transport, £15 billion going in, free school meals, Sizewell, social housing. Mr. Speaker, but she stands there to lecture us, and I say Liz Truss is obviously back in vogue, advising reform officially now, haunting the Tories, and I remind her that the Shadow Home Secretary, I think he was then Chief Secretary to the Treasury, he gave the Liz Truss budget, Mr. Speaker, 9.5 out of 10. The Leader of the Opposition said what was wrong with Liz Truss's budget was not necessarily the package, that was all right, it was the way it was sold. They've learned absolutely nothing.
Mr. Speaker, he loves talking about Liz Truss because he loves talking about Liz Truss. Why? Why? Because he wants to hide from his own economic record. He's a coward. He's a coward. Every time he stands up there and talks about Liz Truss, it's because he is scared about talking about his record and what is happening to the economy out there. Let's bring it back to the U-turn which he's running away from. A U-turn on a policy that his MPs went out defending time and time again. Let's go through what's happening here. 1 minute, they said it was right to take the winter fuel payment away, that there might be a run on the pound. The next minute, they said it was right to give it back. This is laughable. He stands there all puffed up and self-righteous. Why can't the Prime Minister just admit that he made a mistake?
Mr. Speaker, they left a £22 billion black hole that we had to fill, and that's why we took the right decisions. We've stabilised the economy. That's why we've seen 4 interest rate cuts. The triple lock is committed to on this side. They say it's unsustainable on that side. That's £470 for most pensioners and good Q1 growth. 3 weeks ago, I said that I wanted more pensioners to be eligible for winter fuel. I'm really pleased we set out the threshold and the certainty that is needed. And she says I don't want to talk about my record. What about free trade deals, record investment, free school meals, breakfast clubs, social and affordable housing, defence review, Sizewell? We could go on all morning, Mr. Speaker, but we've got the Chancellor who's going to say even more in a minute. Mr. Speaker, I think she at the weekend said that she would be getting better in the role. She could start with apologising for the Liz Truss budget. That would be better.
Mr. Speaker, I get better every week. He gets worse. Yes, he gets worse. Last week, Mr. Speaker.
If you think that is a good look, it is a very bad look. And think twice before you try to shout somebody down in that way. Hey, Ben.
Mr. Speaker, last week he had to get his lines from the Russian embassy. I think we all know that he is getting worse, and what he does not want to talk about is how he is going to make the economy better. That is what the people out there want to hear, and he's got no answers. His trade deals have unravelled. The Strategic Defence Review, everyone out there is asking where is the money coming from, and the fact is he doesn't know how to balance the books. The Chancellor says the winter fuel payment U-turn won't be funded through higher borrowing. So will the Prime Minister admit that it will be funded by putting everybody's taxes up?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I think she let slip on the Matt Ford programme the other day that she rehearses her fury for PMQ. So a very good rehearsal this morning, I think. Mr. Speaker, she asked what we're doing. At the budget, we put record investment in our NHS and our public service. Record investment. And she comes every week to carp on about national insurance, but she doesn't stand there with the courage of her convictions and say she'll actually reverse it. And the reason she won't, because she won't stand up and say she's against the investment in the NHS. She won't stand up and say she's against the investment in our public services. And we'll all listen very carefully in just 20 minutes when the Chancellor lays out more record investment as to whether they welcome it or whether they say they wouldn't support it.
Mr. Speaker, every week I come here to tell him the truth. The truth that the economy is in a spiral because Labour, that's all of them, Labour put up taxes that cut growth. And we all heard the Prime Minister, he didn't rule out tax rises, so they are going to have to put up taxes even more. This is a spiral. And if that wasn't bad enough, Mr. Speaker, if that wasn't bad enough, this morning we heard that because of his terrible Chagos deal, Mauritius is scrapping income tax. Why on earth should the British taxpayer pay for £30 billion for tax cuts in Mauritius?
Mr. Speaker, Diego Garcia is a vital intelligence and strategic capability. And it's absolutely clear that legal uncertainty would compromise it in very short order. That is why they started the negotiations in relation to it. And no responsible Prime Minister would let that happen. We've secured the base for the long time. That has been welcomed by our allies, by the US, by NATO, by Australia, New Zealand, India. It's been opposed by our adversaries, Russia, China and Iran. And in the second column, we add reform, following Putin, and the Tories following reform.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister knows this has nothing to do with national security, but his bad negotiating. I've had the security briefings. It was a bad deal before, and it's still a bad deal. And then in half an hour, the Chancellor is going to stand up and tell us that everything is fine. But the truth is, she has made bad choices. Bad choices that mean higher inflation, bad choices that have led to lower growth, bad choices that have meant that jobs have been lost every single month since Labour came into office. That's hundreds of thousands of families who've lost their income in Stoke, in Grangemouth, in Luton. Those are their constituencies, businesses across the country. The Chancellor has lost all her headroom. She's fallen out with the Cabinet. She's making unfunded spending commitments, which she promised not to do. Isn't the truth that we have got the wrong Chancellor and the wrong priorities?
The wrong choice they made was making her Leader of the Opposition.
Richard Bergen.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and belated birthday greetings to you. Mr. Speaker, it's wrong for any Labour government. No Labour government should ever try to balance the books on the backs of disabled people. Yet in just a few weeks' time, that is what the Prime Minister will ask this House to do. Many of us will not be able to go along with that because it will mean that people who need assistance to cut up their food, to wash themselves, to dress themselves and to go to the toilet will lose the PIP they currently get. That's vital support. This week, the Prime Minister changed direction on winter fuel payment. Will he do the same in relation to this and now drop these disability benefit cuts?
Mr. Speaker, it's very important we make the changes to our welfare system. It's not working. It needs reform. I think everybody agrees with that. It doesn't work for anyone. We will do so on a principled basis that those who can work should work. Those that want to work should be supported to do so, and that we must protect those with the most severe disabilities who will never be able to work. And we're doing that by ending reassessments and paying a new premium.
The Liberal Democrats, Sir Ed Davey.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Can I join others in wishing you belated happy returns for yesterday? And can I welcome the government's sanctions of ministers in the Netanyahu government, Ben-Gvir and Smotrich? The violence they've incited, the settler violence they've incited against innocent Palestinians on the West Bank is intolerable, and the government were right to act. And as it's Carers Week, Mr. Speaker, can I pay tribute to the millions of unpaid family carers across the country and recognise the challenges that they face? Mr. Speaker, the last Conservative government left our health service on its knees. We've heard reports that the NHS will get extra funding in the spending review. If it does, we will support that. But does the Prime Minister agree that no amount of money for the NHS will solve its crisis unless we also invest to fix care? So without preempting the Chancellor's statement, will the Prime Minister reassure me that both social care and family carers will get the priority they deserve in the spending review?
Can I agree with him that the health crisis created by the previous government cannot be solved? They groan. That is exactly how the country feels about the last 14 years and the mess they made of everything. Yes, we do need to fix social care alongside the money that we're putting into the NHS. We're putting record amounts into the NHS. That's the right thing to do, and we're seeing the results. We promised 2 million extra appointments in the first year, of the Labour government. We've delivered 3 million, so there will be that extra funding. I would gently say to him, whilst he welcomes all the extra funding, he can't also at the same time simply say he's against any way of raising the money for the funding. There's an incompatibility there.
Sir Ed Davey.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister knows you've got a fairer and better way of funding NHS investment, and I regret the fact that he didn't answer my question on care. But, Mr. Speaker, moving on, the Prime Minister is right to increase defence spending, and later we'll hear the difficult choices the Chancellor has had to make, partly to fund that defence expenditure. But there are £25 billion of frozen Russian assets in the UK right now. Billions that could be used to stop Putin's war machine and to boost Britain's defence industry even faster. So at the G7 this weekend, will the Prime Minister try to seek an agreement to seize those frozen Russian state assets and use them to support Ukraine?
As he knows, that is an issue that's being considered, but it is complicated, and there are a lot of countervailing factors that need to be carefully balanced in a decision that can be made. We are talking to allies about it, but I don't want to pretend to the House that there's an easy answer on this, because there isn't.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. More jobs, cheaper bills. That was our promise on net zero. If we can't meet those goals, then we must consider our approach. In Pembrokeshire, we have a proud industrial history rooted in oil and gas, and an incredibly exciting opportunity in floating offshore wind in the Celtic Sea. So can the Prime Minister assure me that he is committed to a just transition that protects and creates jobs?
I thank him for raising this. I believe this government must seize the opportunities of net zero for working people, creating good skilled jobs, taking off the roller coaster of volatile fossil fuel markets. Under past governments, Mr. Speaker, hard-working communities had their pride and their jobs ripped away, and we will never do that in relation to a transition. We've already seen £40 billion of investment in energy and renewables, and the CBI shows that 38,000 jobs in Wales are linked to clean energy. I want to see more of that. Both of them are against it.
Saoirse Eastwood.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, with your indulgence, I just want to pay tribute to the Police Service of Northern Ireland briefly for tackling public order in Northern Ireland over the last 2 nights with over 30 police officers injured. I'm sure the whole House would want to join with me in that, and also condemning the racist violence. Mr. Speaker, whether it's the cardiac scandal at the RVH in Belfast, the cervical smear scandal in the Southern Trust, the COVID-bereaved families, or the crash of Chinook Zulu Delta 576, all of which has impacted my constituents in Lagan Valley. The common thread here is that families simply wanted the truth, but they were let down by institutions at every cut and turn. Will this government urgently introduce a duty of candour bill and ensure that it reflects what the Hillsborough Law Now campaigners and families have fought so very hard for?
Can I start with the important point she makes about Ballymena? And I utterly condemn the violence that we've seen overnight in Ballymena and in other parts of Northern Ireland, including against PSNI officers. It is absolutely vital that the PSNI are given the time they need to investigate the incidents concerned, rather than face mindless attacks as they seek to bring peace and order to keep people safe. And the Northern Ireland Secretary is in touch with the PSNI and the Executive, and I'm being kept updated in relation to that. In relation to the tragic cases that she raises, firstly, I thank her for raising them, and it is important that we have a legal duty of candour. We will be introducing that because, as she says, there must be the truth here based on all people being dealt with on the basis of dignity, fairness and accountability. Thank you.
Yasmin Qureshi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In the words of the former Israeli Prime Minister, what we are witnessing in Gaza is indiscriminate, limitless, cruel and criminal killing of civilians. More than 50,000 people have been killed. Children have been shot while queuing for bread. A growing number of genocide scholars, including leading Israeli academics, believe that a genocide is taking place. Under international law, we have a duty to prevent genocide. I served on the UN mission in Kosovo. We acted to stop mass killing there. What is the difference now? Will the Prime Minister please intervene immediately to alleviate human suffering and take steps to recognise the state of Palestine?
Mr. Speaker, she'll have seen the statement we made yesterday and the actions that we're taking with allies. The humanitarian situation is dreadful and distressing, and scenes that we've witnessed outside aid distribution centres are frankly heartbreaking. More aid is needed at volume and speed into Gaza, and Israel's plan for aid delivery is inadequate and insufficient. What is needed is for the UN and other agencies to deliver that aid according to well-established mechanisms, and Israel must allow this. Mr. Speaker, we are working with allies to do all that we can to make this happen, as well, of course, to get the hostages out who've been held for a very long time and a desperately needed return to a ceasefire.
Alex Easton.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Prime Minister, there are significant concerns regarding the potential job losses at Spirit Aerosystems stemming from the deal with Airbus. Would the Prime Minister agree with me and intervene to bring all the main players, including the unions, the Business Secretary and the Secretary of State for Northern Ireland, around the table to ensure these jobs are protected, especially considering the scale of the issues akin to the challenges faced by British Steel? And also, there is an issue for Northern Ireland businesses with the outworkings of the Northern Ireland Protocol and the Windsor Framework. Can the Prime Minister give me reassurances that he's working to resolve all those issues?
Well, I'm grateful to him for raising this important case of Spirit Aerosystems in Northern Ireland. I know how important it is for the workforce. I've visited them myself on more than one occasion. Airbus's decision to expand UK operations is good news for the sector and testament to world-class manufacturing expertise, and I want to see those high-skilled jobs protected. The Northern Ireland Secretary has met Airbus, the trade unions and assembly representatives to discuss the best outcome. The Minister of Industry is continuing engagement with stakeholders, and we will do everything we can in relation to this situation. I'm grateful to him for raising it.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will the Prime Minister join me in condemning decisions taken by the Transport Minister of the previous government, who turned their back on promises to deliver a new train station at Bean Park, which derailed growth in my constituency of Dagenham and Rainham? And will he also agree that the Grampian condition on the Bean Park development must be honoured and that infrastructure must accompany all developments of scale as we get on with the job of delivering millions of new homes?
Well, I know she's been fighting hard for this project for years, and she's right, the previous government failed to deliver. You could say that about anything they touch, Mr. Speaker. But the Rail Minister is working with the Mayor and Housing Minister to get an appropriate solution to unlock housing in the area. Mr. Speaker, we'll also bring C2C back into public ownership, improving reliability and performance and ensuring every penny is focused on better service. I imagine when I said disaster is referring to the last government.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I've spoken with parents with children with special educational needs and disabilities, but aren't getting the support they need in school. However, if as a result their child is out of school, they're left facing prosecution, fines or even prison time. Punishing parents for the failings of a broken system is outrageous. So will the Prime Minister end this by backing Lord's Amendment 349A to the Children's Wellbeing and School Bill, and will he meet with me to discuss this further?
Can I thank her for raising this? The epidemic of absence in our schools is something that really does worry me and concern me. Thanks to the efforts of schools and parents across the country, we've seen over 3 million more days in school this year compared to last, which is really important. But we do know that pupils with special educational needs face more complex barriers in relation to school attendance. Look, we will, of course, look at all amendments in the usual way, but in this instance, I do think we struck the right balance.
Chris Webb.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. May I start by congratulating Sir Billy Boston. Billy ended his career playing at Blackpool, and I know this has been a long campaign by the Culture Secretary, the Speaker, the Honourable Member for Makerfield, and many in this House, so congratulations to Sir Billy. 12,000 people, it's been exposed by shelter, are waiting for council housing in Blackpool. This is a damning indictment on the legacy of previous 14 years of the government. Hundreds of families in my constituency are waiting for housing, stuck in bed and breakfast, or like my constituent Casey, who's sofa surfing with her 2 children in tow. So will the Prime Minister, alongside the Deputy Prime Minister, commit to a new generation of social housing and council housing in my constituency and help me build a better Blackpool?
Well, can I join him on his comments about Billy Boston, and I think the whole House will, Mr. Speaker. We are turning the tide on the housing crisis with the biggest investment in social and affordable housing in a generation, Mr. Speaker. The Chancellor investing £39 billion over the next 10 years, almost double what we saw under the last government. And no wonder the National Housing Federation welcomed this as transformative, saying it offers real hope to the thousands who need safe, secure and affordable homes.
Sarah Bull.
It is National Diabetes Week, and as someone living with type 1, as we both are, Mr. Speaker, we are more than aware of the serious complications of diabetic ketoacidosis, KDA, which, if not caught early enough, could prove fatal. Now, a quarter of children are diagnosed with type 1 diabetes when in KDA, and that could be avoided with early diagnosis. So will the Prime Minister commit to rolling out a national, universal screening programme, as seen in Italy, for type 1?
Can I thank her for championing this really important issue? My late mother had diabetes, and so I know firsthand just what a struggle it can be and how important it is. Type 1 diabetes is not preventable, as she knows, but the sooner we can reach people, the sooner we can care for them. And we have a screening programme in the UK available to families across the country, and over 20,000 children have already taken part. It is really important that we continue to deliver that, but can I thank her for continuing to champion this and to raise her voice on this very important issue.
Durham Pappy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It is crystal clear how social media and smartphones are harming our young people, with cyberbullying, addiction and exploitation absolutely rife. Governments elsewhere are taking bold action. I understand ministers are considering a 2-hour limit, but that's per app rather than per day. I know the Prime Minister takes this seriously, so can he update the House on what he wants to see happen and what action this government will take to protect our children?
It is important that we take action to protect our children, and from July, Mr. Speaker, tough new rules will mean platforms must protect children in the UK from seeing harmful and violent content. We do need to look at other measures needed to create safer online experiences for young people, and we won't hesitate to take further steps.
Speaker, concerning these statistics show that delays for cancer treatment in North Norfolk are greater than the national average. Much of this relates to the struggles that we face specifically as an older rural constituency.
I was elected on a promise to get our NHS back and fighting fit after the criminal damage inflicted on it by the Conservatives. Would the Prime Minister recognise that rural health services face acute and specific challenges? And can he give his word to the people of North Norfolk that the reforms and spending we need will come forward to address this?
Can I thank him for raising this really important issue for his constituents? I think it does impact rural areas in particular. We've set out record funding for the NHS. We have our cancer plan, and I can give him that reassurance.
This is the final question, John Ery.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Prime Minister and members across this House would have witnessed this spectacular victory for Davy Russell in Scottish. Larkhall and Stonehouse by-election. My constituents are sick of SNP failure and they voted for change for their NHS, their schools and for Scotland. So can I ask the Prime Minister, has he seen the calls from within the SNP for John Swinney to resign? And does he agree with me that a leader who has only ever lost elections to the Labour Party should stay put?
Well, can I pay tribute to her for the role that she and others played in seeing Davy Russell elected? He will be a dedicated champion for her and her constituents. And after nearly 2 decades in power, the SNP got their verdict last Thursday. Scotland wants change, and they know the SNP are completely out of ideas. That's why they want a Labour government to deliver real change.
Right, that completes Prime Minister's questions. We now come. I call the Chancellor of the Exchequer to make a statement. Rachel Reeves.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My driving purpose since I became Chancellor is to make working people in all parts of our country better off, to rebuild our schools and our hospitals, to invest in our economy so that everyone has the opportunity to succeed after 14 years of mismanagement and decline by the party opposite, culminating in a £22 billion black hole in the public finances. That was their legacy, and the first job I faced as Chancellor was to set it right. So at the budget last October, and again in the spring, I made the choices necessary to fix the foundations of our economy. And we wasted no time in removing the barriers to growth. The biggest overhaul of our planning system in a generation, launching Britain's first national wealth fund and reforming our pension system to unlock billions of pounds of investment into our economy. We are starting to see the results. The stability that we have provided has helped support 4 cuts in interest rates, saving hundreds of pounds a year for families with a mortgage. Real wages have grown by more in the first 10 months of this Labour government than they did in the first 10 years of Conservative government. And the latest figures show that we are the fastest economy growing in the G7. With countries around the world lining up to do business with Britain again, with new trade deals with India, the United States and with the European Union too. We are renewing Britain. But I know that too many people in too many parts of our country are yet to feel it. This government's task, my task as Chancellor, and the purpose of this spending review is to change that, to ensure that renewal is felt in people's everyday lives, in their jobs and on their high streets. The priorities of this spending review are the priorities of working people, to invest in Britain's security, in Britain's health, and to grow Britain's economy so that working people are better off. Mr. Speaker, today I am allocating the envelope I set out in the spring. I am enormously grateful to my excellent team of officials at the Treasury and to my right honourable friend, the Chief Secretary to the Treasury, for his tireless work throughout this process. Crunching the numbers, looking at the assets and the liabilities. And on that note, can I thank all my my Cabinet colleagues for their contribution to this process. They are all assets to this Labour government. In this spending review, total departmental budgets will grow by 2.3% a year in real terms. Compare that to the Conservative choice of austerity. In contrast to our increase of 2.3%, they cut spending by 2.9% per year in 2010. So let's be clear. Austerity was a destructive choice for the fabric of our society. And it was a destructive choice for our economy too, choking off investment and demand, creating a lost decade for growth, wages and living standards. That is their legacy. My choices are different. My choices are Labour choices. The choices in this spending review that are only possible because of my commitment to economic stability and to the decisions that this government has made. The Conservatives' fiscal rules guaranteed neither stability nor investment, and that is why I changed them. My fiscal rules are non-negotiable, and they are the foundation of stability and of investment. My first rule is for stability, that day-to-day government spending should be paid for through tax receipts. That is the sound economic choice, and it is also the fair choice, because it is not right to expect our children and future generations to pay for the services that we rely on today. This first rule allows me, as I set out in the budget last year, to allocate £190 billion more to the day-to-day running of our public services over the course of this spending review, compared to the plans of the previous government. My second fiscal rule enables me to invest in Britain's economic renewal, while getting public debt down on a downward path. The rule has allowed me to increase public investment by over £100 billion in the autumn and a further £13 billion in the spring. Investment to rebuild our transport networks, to rebuild our defence capability and to rebuild our energy security. In short, to grow our economy. Mr. Speaker, I've made my choices. Tough decisions, yes, for stability. Changing Britain's fiscal rules, yes, for investment. And today, delivering that investment for the renewal of Britain. Now it is a time for the parties opposite to make their choices. The spending plans that I am setting out today are only possible because of the decisions that I took in the autumn to raise taxes and the changes to our fiscal rules. Every one of those changes was opposed by the parties opposite. So today, they can make an honest choice, and they can oppose these spending plans, as they opposed every penny I raised to fund them. Or they can make the same choice as Liz Truss: spend more, borrow more, with no regard for the consequences. And in their clamour to cut taxes for the richest, the Conservatives crashed our economy. They sent mortgage rates spiralling and they put our pensions in peril. I will never take those risks. And reform. Well, they're itching to do the same thing all over again. Now, the member for Clacton may be playing the friend of the workers now, but some of us are old enough to remember when he described the disastrous Liz Truss budget as, and I quote, the best Conservative budget since the 1980s. Mr. Speaker, after the damage is done, he still nods along. They have learnt nothing. And his party have been in Parliament for less than a year, and yet they have already racked up £80 billion of unfunded commitments. They are simply not serious. Mr. Speaker, every day it becomes clearer. It is Labour, and only Labour, that has a credible plan for the renewal of Britain. As I said in my spring statement, the world is changing before our eyes. And since the spring, the challenges that we face have become even more acute. The signs of our age of insecurity are everywhere. So we are acting on the promise in our plan to change, building renewal on foundations of national security, border security and economic security. As the Prime Minister said earlier this month, a new era in the threats that we face demands a new era for defence and security. That's why we took the decision to prioritise our defence spending by reducing overseas development aid, so that defence spending will now rise to 2.6% of GDP by April 2027, including the contribution of our intelligence agencies. That uplift provides funding for my right honourable friend, the Defence Secretary, with £11 billion increased in defence spending and a £600 million uplift for our security and intelligence agencies. That investment will deliver not only security, but also renewal. In Aldermaston and Lincoln, in Portsmouth and Filton, on the Clyde and in Rosyth, investment in Scotland, jobs in Scotland, defence for the United Kingdom, opposed by the Scottish National Party, delivered by this Labour government. And as we invest in our armed forces, our military technology and our supply chains, that also brings huge opportunities. £4.5 billion of investment in munitions, made in factories from Glasgow to Glasgow, Stevenage to Radway Green, and over £6 billion to upgrade our nuclear submarine production, supporting thousands of jobs across Barrow, Derby and Sheffield. We will make Britain a defence industrial superpower, with the jobs, the skills and the pride that come with it. A more unstable world presents new challenges at our borders too, where conflict has opened the way for organised criminal gangs. The British people rightly expect us to have control of who comes into our country. The party opposite said that they would take back control. Well, Mr. Speaker, they lost control. With one failed policy after another. No control, no security. In contrast, in the budget last year, I announced £150 million to establish the new Border Security Command. And today, to support the integrity of our borders, I can announce that that funding will increase with up to £280 million more per year by the end of the spending review for our new Border Security Command. Alongside that, we are tackling the asylum backlog. The party opposite left behind a broken system. Billions of pounds of taxpayers' money spent on housing asylum seekers in hotels, leaving people in limbo and shunting the cost of failure onto local communities. We won't let that stand. So I can confirm today that, led by the work of my right honourable friend, the Home Secretary, we will be ending the costly use of hotels to house asylum seekers in this Parliament. Funding that I have provided today, including from the Transformation Fund, will cut the asylum backlog, hear more appeal cases and return people who have no right to be here, saving the taxpayer £1 billion a year. That is my choice, Mr. Speaker. That is the Labour choice. That is the choice of the British people. And, Mr. Speaker, if we want national security in a dangerous world, that does not stop at the strength of our armed forces or at our border. I have long spoken about what I call securonomics, the basic insight that in an age of insecurity, government must step up to provide security for working people and resilience for our national economy. Put simply, where things are made and who makes them matters. Take energy. The Tories neglected our nuclear and renewable sectors and closed our gas storage facilities, leaving us exposed to hikes in energy prices when Russia invaded Ukraine. And it was working people who paid the price for their mistakes. On this side of the House, we understand that energy security is national security. And so, because it is the right choice for bills, the right choice for jobs and the right choice for growth, this government is investing in the biggest rollout of nuclear power for half a century. A £30 billion commitment to our nuclear-powered future. Yesterday, my right honourable friend, the Energy Secretary, and I announced £14 billion for Sizewell C, producing the energy to power 6 million homes, supporting more than 10,000 jobs, including 1,500 apprentices, to build the nuclear workforce of tomorrow. And, Mr. Speaker, that's not all. We are investing over £2.5 billion in a new small modular reactor programme. Our preferred partner is Rolls-Royce, a great British company based in Derby. This investment is just one step towards our ambition for a full fleet of small modular reactors, as well as providing a route for private sector-led advanced modular reactor projects to be deployed across the UK. Alongside these, we are making nuclear-approved land available in Sellafield to attract private investment and create thousands more jobs. And I'd like to thank my honourable friend from Whitehaven and Workington for his work in this area. And to strengthen Britain's position at the forefront of a global race for new nuclear technologies, a cause championed by the Mayor of the East Midlands, Claire Ward, and my honourable friend, the member for Bassett Law, and to support pioneering work taking place in West Burton in Nottinghamshire, we are investing £2.5 billion in nuclear fusion. And to back British industries, pioneering work in carbon capture and storage will take place. Last year, we announced funding for 2 sites, on Merseyside and in Teesside, where we are building the world's first commercial-scale CCUS plant. Today, I can announce support for the Acorn project in Aberdeenshire, supporting Scotland's transition from oil and gas to low-carbon technology, a challenge and an opportunity well understood by the leader of Scottish Labour, Anas Sarwar, and by my right honourable friend, the Scottish Secretary. And we are also backing the Viking project in Humberside, a cause long supported by my honourable friend, the member for Great Grimsby and Cleethorpes. And because I am determined to make sure that the energy technologies of the future are built here and owned here, and that those jobs come to Britain, with spending review decisions means that we can invest in the wholly publicly owned Great British Energy. Great British Energy, headquartered in Scotland. These are investments to make sure the towns and cities which powered the last industrial revolution will play their part in our next industrial revolution, to reduce our reliance on overseas oil and gas and protect working families from price shocks. A new generation of energy industries for a renewed Britain. That is my choice. That is Labour's choice. That is the choice of the British people. Economic security relies on our ability to buy, make and sell more here in Britain. In April, this government faced a choice: to let British Steel in Scunthorpe go under or to intervene. We heard representations from workers. Mr. Speaker, that choice was the choice not of the metal trader, but this Labour government. We heard representations from workers, trade unions and from my honourable friend, the member for Scunthorpe. My right honourable friend, the Business Secretary, and I were not prepared to tolerate a situation in which Britain's steel capacity was fatally undermined. We were not prepared to see another working-class community lose the pride, lose the prosperity, lose the dignity that industry provides. So we did intervene to save British Steel and the jobs that come with it, and I am proud of that decision. And this government will invest in Scunthorpe's long-term future and the future of steelworks across our great country, and in a vote of confidence in our homegrown steel. Heathrow Airport, where we are backing London by backing a third runway, has signed the UK Steel Charter, a multi-billion-pound airport expansion backed by Labour, built with British steel. And as we build our train and tram lines, our military hardware and our new power stations. That will mean orders for steel made in Britain. In Sheffield Forgemasters, where we are investing in nuclear-grade steel, and in Port Talbot, where this spending review confirms the £500 million grant to Tata Steel. A future for British-made steel, and a proud future for Britain's steel communities. Things built to last, built here in Britain. That is my choice. That is Labour's choice. That is the choice of the British people. This Labour government is backing British business. There will be more to come in the weeks ahead with our 10-year infrastructure strategy and our modern industrial strategy too. A plan drawn up in partnership with businesses and trade unions. And when I speak to business people and entrepreneurs about what they need to succeed, they say they need the chance to innovate. They need access to finance. They need a deep pool of talent. We have heard that message, and so today we are taking action. First, innovation, a great British strength. Our universities are world-leading, and we are proud of them. We want our high-tech industries in Britain today to continue to lead the world in the years to come, in car production, in aerospace, and in life sciences. So we are backing our innovators, backing our researchers, and backing our entrepreneurs, with R&D funding rising to a record high of £22 billion per year by the end of the spending review. And because homegrown AI has the potential to solve diverse and daunting challenges, as well as the opportunity for good jobs and investment here in Britain, I am announcing £2 billion to back this government's AI action plan, overseen by my right honourable friend, the Secretary of State for Science and Technology. And second, to champion those small businesses seeking access to finance as they look to grow, I am increasing the financial firepower of the British Business Bank. A two-thirds increase in its investments, increasing its overall financial capacity to £25.6 billion to help pioneering businesses start up and to scale up, backing Britain's entrepreneurs, backing Britain's wealth creators. And third, as we invest, if we are to thrive in the industries of the future, we must give our young people the skills that they need to contribute to our national success. As scientists, engineers and designers, as builders, welders and electricians. I know the ambition, the drive and the potential of our young people, and it cannot be right that too often those ambitions and that potential are stifled. When young people who want training find courses are oversubscribed and are turned away at the door, forcing growing businesses eager to recruit to look elsewhere. Potential wasted and enterprise frustrated. So today I am providing record investment for training and upskilling. £1.2 billion a year by the end of the spending review to support over 1 million young people into training and apprenticeships so that their potential, their drive and their ambition is frustrated no longer. And on the subject of skills, Mr. Speaker, we should all recognise the Leader of the Opposition's own commitment to lifelong learning. At the weekend, she promised to learn and to get better on the job. Well, I am sure that members on the benches opposite will be supporting her in that endeavour. Good luck with that. As we build a strong and secure and resilient economy, working people must feel the benefits. That starts with the security of a proper home. Our planning reforms have opened up the opportunity to build. Now we must act to make the most of those opportunities. And a plan to match the scale of the housing crisis must include social housing. Neglected for too many decades, but not by this Labour government. And so, led by my right honourable friend, the Deputy Prime Minister, we are taking action. I am proud to announce the biggest cash injection into social and affordable housing in 50 years. A new affordable homes programme in which I am investing £39 billion over the next decade, direct government funding to support house building, especially for social rent. And I am pleased to report that towns and cities, including Blackpool, Preston, Sheffield and Swindon, have already had plans to bring forward bids to build those homes in their communities. And I have gone further. Mr. Speaker, last autumn, I enabled greater use of financial transactions to support investment in our infrastructure, alongside strict guardrails that ensure that money is spent wisely through our public financial institutions. And so, in line with that commitment, I am providing an additional £10 billion for financial investments, including to be delivered through Homes England, to crowd in private investment and unlock hundreds of thousands more homes. Homes built by a Labour government, homes built for working people. But, Mr. Speaker, it is no good investing in new skills, new jobs and new homes if they are not properly connected. That is why last week, with the support of my right honourable friend, the Transport Secretary, I announced £15 billion of investment to connect our cities and our towns, the biggest ever investment of its kind. Investments in buses in Rochdale, train stations in Merseyside and Middlesbrough, mass transit in West Yorkshire, and metro extensions in Birmingham, in Tyne and Wear, and in Stockport. And alongside that, we are backing Doncaster Airport. Today, I am announcing a 4-year settlement for Transport for London to provide certainty and stability for our largest local transport network to plan for the future. And for other regions in the UK, I am today providing for a fourfold increase in local transport grants by the end of this Parliament to make the improvements put off for far too long, to improve the journeys that people make every day. And to unlock the potential of all parts of Britain, we are going further, investing in major rail projects to connect our towns and cities. In October, I announced funding for the TransPennine route upgrade, the backbone of rail travel in the north, linking York and Leeds and Manchester, with a quarter of that route expected to be electrified by this summer. I know the commitment of my honourable friends, the members for Huddersfield, York Outer and Colne Valley to this issue. And today I can announce a further £3.5 billion of investment for that route. But my ambition, and the ambition of people across the north, is greater still. And so, in the coming weeks, I will set out this government's plan to take forward our ambitions for Northern Powerhouse Rail. I have also heard the representations of my honourable friends, the members for Milton Keynes North, Milton Keynes Central and Buckingham and Bletchley. And I can tell the House today, to connect Oxford and Cambridge and to back Milton Keynes' leading tech sector, I am providing a further £2.5 billion for the continued delivery of East-West Rail. And on a matter I know is of great importance to my honourable friends, the members for Lichfield, Birmingham Northfield and Birmingham Erdington, I can announce today that I am providing funding for the Midlands Rail Hub, the region's biggest and most ambitious rail improvement scheme for generations, strengthening connections from Birmingham across the West Midlands and into Wales too. Mr. Speaker, for 14 years, the Conservatives failed the people of Wales. Those days are over. Following representations from my right honourable friend, the Welsh Secretary, the First Minister for Wales and Welsh Labour MPs, I am pleased to announce today £445 million for railways in Wales over 10 years, including new funding for Padeswood Sidings and Cardiff West Junction. That, Mr. Speaker, is the difference made by two Labour governments working together to undo a generation of underfunding and neglect. This government takes seriously its commitment to investment, jobs and growth in every part of the UK. And I have heard the concerns of my honourable friends, the members for Mid Cheshire and Rosendale and Darwen, and the Mayor of Liverpool City Region, Steve Rotherham, that past governments have underinvested in towns and cities outside of London and the South East. And they are right. So I am today publishing the conclusion of the review of the Treasury's Green Book, the government's manual for assessing value for money. Our new Green Book will support place-based business cases and make sure no region has Treasury guidance wielded against them. I said we would do things differently. I said we wanted growth in all parts of Britain, and Mr. Speaker, I meant it. Backing our nations and regions means backing our devolved governments. And this spending review provides the largest settlement in real terms since devolution was introduced, with £52 billion for Scotland, £20 billion for Northern Ireland by the end of the spending review, and £23 billion for Wales. And having heard representations from many Welsh Labour colleagues, and because I know the obligation we owe to our industrial communities, I'm providing a multi-year settlement of £118 million to keep coal tips safe in Wales. Mr. Speaker, I know the pride that people feel in their communities. I see it everywhere I go. But I also know that for too many people, there is a sense that something has been lost, as high streets have declined, as community spaces have closed, as jobs and opportunities have gone elsewhere. The renewal of Britain must be felt everywhere. Today, I'm pleased to announce additional funding to support up to 350 communities, especially those in the most deprived areas. Funding to improve parks, youth facilities, swimming pools and libraries. Supporting councils' fight back against graffiti and fly tipping, including in Blackpool South, in Stockport, in Stoke Central, in Swindon North, and in Newcastle upon Tyne East and Wallsend. And there's more. Job creation and community assets are vital to our growth mission. But too often, regeneration projects are held back, gathering dust in bureaucratic limbo. We are changing that. We will establish a growth mission fund to expedite local projects that are important for growth. Projects like Southport Pier, an iconic symbol of coastal heritage which has stood empty since 2022. Kilcody's seafront and High Street, where investment would create jobs and new business opportunities. And plans for Peterborough's new sports quarter to drive activity and community cohesion. Because people deserve a government which shares their ambition for their communities. To deliver renewal, to deliver growth, to deliver opportunity. And that is what you get with a Labour government. If people are to feel pride in their community, enjoy their public spaces and spend time on their high streets, they must feel safe when they do so. Safe in the knowledge that when people break the law, they feel the full force of the law. But the party opposite left our prisons overflowing and on the brink of collapse. And they left it to us to deal with the consequences. We are taking the necessary action. So with my right honourable friend, the Justice Secretary, we have announced that we are investing £7 billion to fund 14,000 new prison places and putting up to £700 million per year into reform of the probation system too. Today, I will do more. I am increasing police spending power by an average 2.3% per year in real terms over the spending review period. To protect our people, our homes and our streets. That is more than £2 billion, supporting us to meet our plan for change commitment of putting 13,000 additional police officers, PCSOs and special constables into neighbour policing roles across England and Wales. And as well as every place, I am determined that every family feels the benefits of Britain's renewal. Falling interest rates, supported by our commitment to economic stability, are already saving many families hundreds of pounds a month on their mortgage. I have accepted pay review body recommendations for pay in our armed forces, for our nurses, our teachers and our prison officers, giving public sector workers the fair pay rises that they deserve. And in autumn, I increased the national living wage, a pay rise for around 3 million hard-working people. And this government is doing more. We're banning exploitative zero-hour contracts. We're strengthening statutory sick pay and ending the injustice of unscrupulous fire and rehire practices. Those are my choices. Those are Labour choices. Mr. Speaker, I know that for many people, the cost of living remains a constant challenge, which is why we are capping the cost of school uniforms. And I can tell the House today that I am extending the £3 bus fare cap until at least March 2027. Earlier this week, we announced that over 3/4 of pensioners will receive the winter fuel payment this year. And there is more. To get bills down, not just this winter, but in winters to come, we have expanded the Warm Homes Plan to support thousands more of the UK's poorest households, including providing £7 million to homes in Bradford, £11 million to homes in Rugby, and £30 million to homes in Blackpool. And today I can announce that I will deliver in full our manifesto commitment to upgrade millions of homes, saving families and pensioners across the country up to £600 each and every year off their bills. I am determined to do everything in my power to put more money in people's pockets, to give people security and control in their lives, to make working people better off, and to show them that this government, this Labour government, is on their side. Mr. Speaker, taxpayers work hard for their money, and they expect their government to spend their money with care. So for the first time in 18 years, this government has run a zero-based review, a line-by-line assessment of what government spends, something that the Tories didn't bother to do in 14 years. And as a result of that work, and of our wider drive for efficiencies, led by my right honourable friend, the Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster, in this spending review I have found savings. From the closure and sale of government buildings and land, cutting back office costs and reducing consultancy spend, all which the previous government failed to do. Reforms that will make public services more efficient, more productive and more focused on the user. I have been relentless in driving out inefficiencies. I will be relentless in cutting out waste, with every single penny reinvested back into our public services. Mr. Speaker, I joined the Labour Party almost 30 years ago because I knew that the Conservative Party, when I grew up, didn't care much about schools like mine or the kids I grew up with. I joined because I believe that every young person should have the equal chance to succeed, no matter where they come from, no matter what their parents do. I believe that just as strongly today as I did then. That is why at the budget last autumn, I ended the tax loophole which exempted private schools from VAT and business rates. And I put that money where it belongs, into helping the 93% of children in our state schools. Mr. Speaker, they oppose money for their local state schools, and I will always prioritise them. That was my choice. That is the Labour choice. And because of the decisions that we made in this spending review, and working with my right honourable friend, the Education Secretary, last week this government announced that free school meals will be extended to over 500,000 more children. That policy alone will lift 100,000 children out of poverty, children in schools from Tower Hamlets to Sunderland and from Swansea to Bridgend. Last year, at Labour Party conference, I was proud to announce the first steps in our plan to deliver breakfast clubs for every child, with an initial rollout to the first 750 schools. And we will continue with that national rollout as part of our manifesto commitment, so that no child goes hungry and every child can have the best chance to thrive and succeed. Yeah. And because I know that a good start in life does not just start at school, I can also announce £370 million for school-based nurseries, to put us firmly on track to meet our plan for change commitment, for a record number of children being school-ready. And for children's social care, To break the dangerous cycle of late intervention and low-quality care, I am providing £555 million of transformation funding over the spending review period, so that children do not go needlessly into care when they could stay at home. And for children where state intervention is necessary, better care and better outcomes. And last week, I was pleased to announce, with my right honourable friend, the Culture Secretary, that more than £130 million from the Dormant Assets Scheme with the financial services sector will be allocated to fund facilities for our young people, to give every child the chance to take part in music, sport and in drama, to fund libraries in our schools, so that the confidence and the opportunity that those resources open up are no longer the preserve of the privileged few. Those are my choices. They are Labour choices, and they are the choices of the British people. Overall, I am providing a cash uplift of over £4.5 billion a year for additional funding in the core schools budget by the end of the spending review, backing our teachers and backing our kids. Mr. Speaker, people who went to ordinary comprehensives in the 80s and 90s are all too familiar with the experience of being taught in temporary classrooms. And the previous Conservative government oversaw another generation of kids herded into cold and damp buildings as school roofs literally crumbled. It wasn't acceptable when I was at school, and it isn't acceptable now. So I am providing investment rising to nearly £2.3 billion per year to fix our crumbling classrooms. In addition, £2.4 billion per year to continue our programme to rebuild 500 schools, including Chase Community School in Enfield, Woodkirk Academy in Leeds and Budmouth Academy in Weymouth. Investing in our young people, investing in Britain's future, investing in opportunity for all. That is Labour's choice. Finally, Mr. Speaker, let me turn to the... I knew that, Chair. Let me turn to our National Health Service. It's our most treasured public service. People rightly expect an NHS that is there when they need it, an ambulance that comes when they call one, a GP appointment available when they need one, a scan that is performed when they are referred for one. I am hugely grateful to our nurses, our doctors, our paramedics and other healthcare professionals for everything that they do. If we want a strong economy where working people can fulfil their potential, then we must have a strong NHS. Not as the Reform Party have called for, an insurance-based system. We believe in a publicly funded National Health Service free at the point of use. Now, perhaps the member for Clacton should spend some more time focusing on the priorities of the British people and less time in the Westminster Arms. Although, Mr. Speaker, after this week, perhaps the two-chairman pub might be a better fit. At the budget, I took the decisions necessary to provide an immediate injection of funding to get the NHS back on its feet. And I commend my right honourable friend, the Health Secretary, for all the progress that he has already made. In less than a year, this government has recruited 1,700 new GPs, delivered 3.5 million extra appointments, and cut waiting lists by more than 200,000. Fixing our NHS also means delivering fundamental reform across social care, which means that we are backing the first ever fair pay agreement for that sector. And I am increasing the NHS technology budget by almost 50%. And we are investing £10 billion to bring our analogue health system into the digital age, including through the NHS app, so patients can manage their prescriptions, get their test results and book appointments all in one place. We are shifting care back to the community, providing more funding to support the training of thousands more GPs to deliver millions more appointments. We are investing more in prevention to meet our manifesto commitment of providing mental health support teams in all schools in England by the end of this Parliament. These investments will enable the delivery of our upcoming 10-year plan for health and put the NHS firmly back on the path to renewal. And to support that plan, to back the doctors and nurses that we rely on, and to make sure that the NHS is there whenever we need it, I am proud to announce today that this Labour government is making a record cash investment in our National Health Service, increasing real terms day-to-day spending by 3% per year for every single year of this spending review. An extra £29 billion per year for the day-to-day running of our health service. Mr. Speaker, that is what the British people voted for, and that is what we will deliver. More appointments, more doctors, more scanners, the National Health Service, created by a Labour government, protected by a Labour government, and renewed by this Labour government. Mr. Speaker, this is a spending review to deliver the priorities of the British people. Security, a strong Britain in a changing world. Economic growth, powered by investment and opportunity in every part of Britain. And our nation's health, with an NHS fit for the future. I have made my choices. In place of chaos, I choose stability. In place of decline, I choose investments. In place of pessimism, division and defeatism, I choose national renewal. These are my choices, Mr. Speaker. These are Labour choices. These are the choices of the British people, and I commend this statement to the House.
Shadow Chancellor Belstride.
Mr. Speaker, this spending review is not worth the paper that it is written on. Because the Chancellor has completely lost control. This is the spend now, tax later review. Because the Right Honourable Lady knows she will need to come back here in the autumn with yet more taxes. And a cruel summer of speculation awaits. How can we possibly take this Chancellor seriously after the chaos of the last 12 months? We were assured, Mr. Speaker, we were assured at the election that Labour's plans involved barely any additional spending or borrowing. Now the Chancellor parades her largesse. Hundreds of billions in additional spending over this Parliament. The initial profile for that spending was, of course, significantly front-loaded, but the Chancellor now expects us to believe that she will let spending rise by only 1.2% a year. There is no chance whatsoever of that happening. For the lesson of the last year has been that when the going gets tough, the Right Honourable Lady blinks. She presented herself as the Iron Chancellor, but what we have seen is the tin-foil Chancellor. Flimsy and ready to fold in the face of the slightest pressure. She said she would not fiddle her fiscal rules. Then she did. She said she wouldn't make any unfunded commitments, but with the humiliation of the winter fuel U-turn, she just has. She looked business leaders in the eye and said no more taxes. But we all know what happened next, and we all know what is coming in the autumn. Her own backbenchers, her cabinet colleagues, Labour's trade union paymasters, even the Prime Minister himself, they have all seen that she is weak, weak, weak. And they can smell the blood. They will be back for more, Mr. Speaker, and they will get it. These spending plans are a fantasy. And it's not the truth, Mr. Speaker, that the Chancellor has to maintain this fiction because she has left herself no room for manoeuvre. She is constantly teetering on the edge of blowing her fiscal rules, which she already changed to allow even more borrowing. And the only way she can claim to be meeting her rules is by pretending that she can control spending over the coming years. But, Mr. Speaker, let's look at the record so far. Borrowing in the last financial year came out $11 billion above even the OBR's March forecast, and 70% higher than the plans that she inherited from this side of the House.
Tax up, borrowing up.
But for someone so keen on borrowing, Mr. Speaker, the Chancellor seems strangely reticent to even use the word. Indeed, ministers bizarrely tell us that it is Labour's fiscal rules themselves that have, quote, generated investment. The reality is a little more straightforward. They have loosened the fiscal rules so they can borrow more. Borrow and borrow and borrow, allowing the national debt to continue to rise higher every single year, while ministers pretend that it is not. An eye-watering £200 billion of additional borrowing in this Parliament compared to the plans set out in the last Conservative budget, with £80 billion more to be spent on debt interest alone. In fact, if she had retained our fiscal rules, as she said, they may laugh, Mr. Speaker. If she had retained our fiscal rules, as she said she would before the election, the OBR have confirmed that she would be breaking them right now. Mr. Speaker, our country is now vulnerable to even the smallest changes in the bond markets. Should we face a sudden external shock, we have no fiscal firepower left with which to respond, all thanks to the Right Honourable Lady's choices. So can I ask the Chancellor, will she be open about what she has done? Will she admit that she has made a conscious choice to borrow more and to accept higher debts? Does she accept this means interest rates and mortgages will be higher than they would otherwise have been, as the OBR themselves have said? And given she continues to claim that she has brought stability to the public finances, can I ask her what on earth her definition of stability is? And, Mr. Speaker, the Chancellor must be delighted that she does not have to face a new OBR forecast today. Because if she did, she would have to set out how she will fund her humiliating U-turn on winter fuel payments, having already blown the savings on buying off her trade union paymasters last year. She said this week there was, and I quote, she said, still work to do to ensure that the sums add up. Hardly reassuring from the person in charge of the nation's finances, Mr. Speaker. You don't need to have worked at the Bank of England for a decade to know that that pitiful utterance is unlikely to soothe the markets. So can the Chancellor confirm categorically that there will be no additional borrowing to pay for this chaotic reversal? And if this is the case, can she explain how on earth it can be paid for without raising taxes? And can the Right Honourable Lady explain why last summer, apparently to avoid a run on the pound, Mr. Speaker, this measure was so urgent that pensioners had to be left in the cold over the last winter? What exactly has changed? Because it certainly hasn't been made possible by an improvement in the economy or the public finances, which the IFS said this week are both in a worse state now than when Labour came into office. And if we had an OBR forecast, we might also get some answers on how the government intends to find £3.5 billion to abolish the two-child benefit cap, which we are led to believe is imminent. Another addition to the ballooning welfare bill, another expensive surrender to the Labour left. And we would certainly get the OBR's assessment of the economic outlook following the tariffs. Changes the Right Honourable Lady knew full well were coming. Meanwhile, her deluge of taxes and regulations has left business confidence at record lows, costing people their livelihoods. Only yesterday, Mr. Speaker, we saw the latest evidence of that. Figures for last month show the number of people on payrolls fell by more than 100,000, after already falling by 55,000 in April. Unemployment is up by more than 10% since Labour came to office. The Right Honourable Lady made trumpet extra spending today, but is not the simple truth that she has trashed the economy and left no contingency in the face of a highly volatile global outlook. It's not the reality, Mr. Speaker, that the Chancellor knows she will have to come back in the autumn with more tax rises to fund these plans. Or can she assure us right now that this is not the case? Yes or no? We know that the Deputy Prime Minister has helpfully provided her with an entire brochure of tax rises that she will no doubt be perusing over the summer. The Corbynist catalogue, Mr. Speaker. And can the Chancellor confirm, as promised, can she confirm as promised, that the income tax thresholds will not be frozen at the budget, a move she herself said would hurt working people? And Mr. Speaker, what about the uncertainties in the departmental spending plans she has just set out today? Can she assure us that these plans will not be topped up, that no backroom deals have been cut with disgruntled cabinet ministers? Can she assure us that the capital allocations announced today will actually be spent on capital, not diverted in year, as she has in the past, to day-to-day budgets to play more games with her fiscal rules? The Chancellor has had to impose a settlement on the Home Secretary because this spending review won't deliver for our hard-working police officers across the country. Instead, the Home Office budget gets squandered on asylum costs because this government simply doesn't have a plan on illegal migration. And as the Defence Secretary admitted, and I quote, the government has lost control of our borders. Small boat crossings, Mr. Speaker, are up 42% on the same point last year. On energy, at a time when businesses up and down the country are struggling with high energy costs, the Chancellor has chosen today to fund the Energy Secretary's vanity projects like GB Energy.
Where is he?
And while we welcome the announcements on expanding nuclear capacity, the scale of ambition is a downgrade on the commitments made previously on this side of the House. Mr. Speaker, the party opposite barely mentioned farming in their manifesto. And now we know why. It's not enough to have hit the farmers in our country with a family farm tax. Today, what we see in black and white is a choice to make further cuts to the vital grants on which many farmers rely. A huge betrayal of our farming communities, and something which many of her MPs in rural areas will have to go back to their constituencies later this week to explain. And on defence, we will always welcome any additional investment in our armed forces and capability.
But there isn't.
Though I note, Madam Deputy Speaker, nothing was said about when 3% will be achieved. All we heard was that in the intelligence service spending was to be included in defence spending to flatter the numbers. We left the party opposite a fully funded plan, which they didn't over for a year. But now, what we get is the Chancellor's own black hole on defence spending, the lack of a timeline on when we will achieve the 3%. Instead, we get a £30 billion bill for the Chagos surrender. money which should go to our brave armed forces, rather than is being reported funding lower taxation in Mauritius. The first tax cuts for which this Chancellor has ever been responsible are in Mauritius. Mr. Speaker, we would have made different choices. We would not have killed growth with huge tax rises and new regulations. We would not have taught down our economy and the great businesses up and down our country. We would be focusing on efficiency and productivity in the public sector and not handing out pay rises with no strings attached. And we would be getting a grip on welfare. Labour cancelled our plans for fundamental reform to health and disability benefits that would have seen 450,000 fewer people on long-term sickness benefits. That is a disgrace. And instead of proper reforms to PIP, their own plans are a rushed cost-cutting exercise, so rushed they even had to change them after they had announced them. And their own backbenchers are in full revolt. Yet again, they talk tough, but there is no substance. The Right Honourable Lady has no grip. She has no clue. The markets and the public see a Chancellor completely out of her depth. Having blown her headroom and more from her budget in the autumn, she was forced into an emergency budget in March to scrabble around to try and repair the damage. Today she comes before us again with yet another fantastical tale that she knows will have completely fallen apart come the autumn. So we are not left with stronger foundations, as the Right Honourable Lady would have us believe, but rather another dose of that hallmark for which her actions have made her so renowned: uncertainty and failure. And so there she sits, Mr. Speaker, powerless to resist her disillusioned MPs and her panicking Prime Minister. Like a cork on the tide, the drumbeat for U-turns pounding in her ears. Yet her tone today suggests that all is well. The sunlit uplands await. What a hopeless conceit, a masterclass in delusion. Inflation is up, unemployment is up, growth is marked down, business and households are hurting, investors are fleeing in their droves. The bond market vigilantes circle. And here we have the Chancellor who refuses to listen. Not only tinfoil, but tin-eared too. And let me be clear, Mr. Speaker, it is working people and businesses who will pay the price come the autumn, with yet more taxes to pay for her weakness and her failures. Mr. Speaker, we cannot afford this spending review. And for many, the growing conclusion is that we cannot afford this Chancellor.
Chancellor of the Exchequer. I will address the Shadow Chancellor's specific points in a moment, but I want to start by acknowledging the progress he has made. After all, Madam Deputy Speaker, it's been quite a week for him. Last Thursday, he gave a speech saying it will take time for his party to win back trust on the economy. And today he showed us how far he and his party have to go to be able to achieve that. Now, I want to give him some credit for last week's analysis. He said that the Conservative Party was seen to have failed. He's right. He said that the last Conservative government put at risk the very stability which Conservatives had always said must be carefully protected. Madam Deputy Speaker, I agree with him. And he said that on his party's...
Chancellor, I need to be able to hear, and I'm sure our constituents would also want to hear. Chancellor.
He said that the credibility of the UK's economic framework was undermined by spending billions with no proper plan for how it would be paid for. Mr. Speaker, I couldn't have put it better myself. Now, the Shadow Chancellor could have gone a lot further. For example, Madam Deputy Speaker, he couldn't even bring himself to mention Liz Truss by name. Stride by name, baby steps by nature. But at least he's made a start. also spoke about, and I quote, the death of what we might call the age of thoughtfulness. And speaking of the death of thoughtfulness, let me now turn to his response to the spending review. Now, the Shadow Chancellor welcomed our nuclear investment of £30 billion, but he said it's not enough. He welcomed our defence investment of £11 billion, but he said it was not enough. He and his party opposed the decisions that this government has taken to make those announcements possible by voting against the budget in October last year. Madam Deputy Speaker, you can't spend the money if you won't raise the money. Now that's a lesson from Liz Truss that he has already forgotten. He complained about the level of investment that I've announced, ignoring the fact that the reason this investment is so important is because his party oversaw 14 years of cratering investment, stagnating wages and public service collapse. So let me remind him of what I said, Mr. Speaker, Madam Deputy Speaker. The Tories' fiscal rules guaranteed neither stability nor investment, and that is why I changed them, so that we can get stability and we can get investment. All their fiscal rules enabled was them to crash the economy, and the working people of Britain will never forgive them for doing that. So the party opposite set themselves against investment in the renewal of Britain. They set themselves against NHS investment, free school meals, investment in skills, investment in carbon capture and storage, investment in transport in our towns and in our cities, investment in everything that we've set out today. And yet the British people voted for them. And the honourable gentleman says, the right honourable gentleman says that the Home Office budget involves an increase in asylum costs. It doesn't. Asylum costs are coming down under this Labour government because we are deporting more people and getting them out of hotels. He says that we're cutting police spending, we're increasing it by 2.3% in real terms a year. And, Madam Deputy Speaker, we've had no apology. No apology for the damage that they did to our economy or to our public services. In the last 11 months, interest rates have been cut 4 times. GDP was the fastest growing of all G7 economies in the first quarter of this year. Business confidence is rising. 500,000 more people are in work. Record investment has been made in Britain. Real wages have increased more in 10 months than they did in 10 years of the Conservative government. The national living wage has increased, giving 3 million working people a pay rise. And we've done all of this without increasing taxes on working people. Those are the choices that we have made. That is the difference that we are making. And in the spending review today, we set out the spending that we announced in the budget last year and in the spring statement. Not a penny more, not a penny less. I said in the budget and in the spring statement that public services must now live within the means that we have set, and we have achieved that. There will be a budget later this year, and in that budget we will set out in the round all of the fiscal plans. But we have already drawn a line under the Tory mismanagement with tax rises last year, and we will never have to repeat a budget like that again, because we will never have to clean up after the mess that the party opposite made again. Now, the reason that this Labour government has spent its first year fixing the foundations of our economy and stabilising our public finances is because it is what we had to do. The government of which the Shadow Chancellor was a part of left an unenviable legacy, which is why his party is, in his own words, in a difficult place. Now, we've made our choices. Removing barriers to growth, barriers untouched by the party when they were in office for 14 years. Strengthening Britain's security, the biggest real terms increase in defence spending since the end of the Cold War, something that they did not do when they had 14 years in office. Bringing our health service in the 21st century after neglect by the party opposite in their 15 years in office. Investing in Britain's renewal to repair the damage done by the party opposite in their 14 years in office. And, Madam Deputy Speaker, in stark contrast to the Conservatives' 14 years of chaos, waste and decline, we are delivering on the priorities of the British people.
Chair of the Select Committee, Dame Meg Hillier.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I congratulate my right honourable friend for delivering
this spending review, the first zero-based review in a very long time. And I think it's absolutely vital that as the taxpayer, the citizen, are looking very carefully at their spending in the cost of living crisis, that government does that too. And we look forward to having the Chief Secretary to the Treasury in front of the Select Committee in 2 weeks' time to look at this in more detail. I particularly noticed from the figures that she has made a good fist of ensuring that government departments have more than under the Conservatives in very many cases. And I very much welcome her work on delivering on child poverty and tackling that scourge on our society. I do note, however, in the brief glimpse I've had at the figures, that for the Department of Housing, Communities and Local Government, there is a smaller increase than there would have been, and there is this £39 billion over a decade for affordable social housing. Those children living in poverty also have the poverty of situation in many cases. So could she expand on how she's going to see that money with her, the Deputy Prime Minister deliver to provide that social housing that so many of those children in poverty desperately need?
Chancellor.
I thank my right honourable friend for that question, and I appreciate her welcoming the breakfast clubs, the free school meals, also the capping in school uniform costs to help families living in poverty, and the free school meals, as my honourable friend knows, will lift 100,000 children out of poverty. She mentions the social affordable homes grant. The affordable homes grant is going to have its biggest ever increase, and we've set that budget for 10 years to give certainty to the sector so they understand what is available. And in addition, we have set out some social rent changes to give certainty to the sector to invest for the future.
Liberal Democrat spokesperson Daisy Cooper.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. It's been almost a year since Labour swept to power with the promise of change, but we are still not seeing the scale of ambition needed to turn the country around. We welcome the announcement of investment in the NHS, but on its own, it won't work unless the government invests in social care too. We welcome the investment in infrastructure, but on its own, it won't work unless the government invests in skilling up the workforce we need to build it. And cutting billions from departmental budgets in real terms seems unnecessary when the government could instead go for growth and get a much deeper trading relationship with Europe, a move which could raise an extra £25 billion per year for the public purse. For as long as the government fails to truly tackle the red tape and trading barriers blocking British businesses, the government's grip on economic growth is more akin to a handbrake than an accelerator. Madam Deputy Speaker, the last Conservative government left our NHS on its knees. On their watch, waiting lists were soaring, hospitals were crumbling, and our high street healthcare was hollowed out. Can the Chancellor confirm that this funding will deliver the extra 8,000 GPs that are needed to guarantee everyone an appointment within 7 days or 24 hours if urgent? Can the Chancellor confirm that this funding will bring dentists back into the NHS and put an end to dental deserts? Can the Chancellor promise that this funding will mean that every cancer patient starts treatment within 62 days? And will she promise that the government will meet the Prime Minister's own pledge that 92% of routine operations will take place within 18 weeks? Will the Chancellor and the Health Secretary, sitting side by side, set up a crumbling hospitals task force to look at creative funding ideas, to bring construction dates forward and put an end to the vicious cycle that we saw under the previous government, and false economies of delayed rebuilds leading to rising repair costs? And then, of course, Madam Deputy Speaker, there is the elephant in the NHS waiting room: the crisis in our social care services. The Chancellor knows. The Health and Social Care Secretary knows. This whole Parliament knows that today's investment in the NHS will be like pouring water into a leaky bucket if hospitals cannot discharge patients who are well enough to leave because there aren't the care workers to help them recover at home.
Absolutely right.
This fair pay agreement that the Chancellor talks about, of course, is welcome, but it is barely a baby step, and it is nowhere near enough to bring back social care from the brink. At a bare minimum, we need a higher minimum wage for our care workers to stop the sector hemorrhaging care workers to other sectors. So when will the Chancellor finally recognise that we will never fix the NHS if we don't fix social care too? And will the Government finally act with urgency and commit to concluding the social care review by the end of this year, not in 3 years' time? On housing, we warmly welcome the Government's investment in social homes. Will the Government now commit to the Liberal Democrats' target of building 150,000 social homes every single year? Madam Deputy Speaker, other public services are crying out for investment too. Our communities need proper neighbourhood policing to feel safe. Our farmers need fair support payments to keep food on our tables. And people of all ages deserve access to training and skills to build their future and to help power our economy forward. That's why it's so disappointing that the Chancellor has today made things so difficult for some of our public services, cutting unprotected budgets by billions. Yes, we know she was faced with the fallout from the most reckless and the most out-of-touch Conservative government in recent memory. But being responsible is not just about taking tough decisions. It's about having the moral courage to make the right ones. Yet this government seems determined not to adopt the one policy that could put rocket boosters on our economy and raise billions for our public services. A proper trade deal with Europe. A new bespoke customs union with the EU could boost our GDP by more than 2.2%, securing additional revenue to the tune of £25 billion a year, a huge boost to businesses and to our struggling public services too. If the Chancellor can U-turn on the winter fuel payment, thanks to a skinny EU trade pact worth just 0.2% in extra GDP, just imagine how many more U-turns she could perform with a proper trade deal worth 10 times as much. Madam Deputy Speaker, we Liberal Democrats strongly support the allocation of 2.5% of GDP on defence, but we want to see ministers go further and faster to bolster our national security in today's uncertain world. Will the Chancellor agree to cross-party talks in which we can work together to set a pathway to 3% of GDP well ahead of 2034? Will the Government use some of today's investment to reverse the Conservatives' irresponsible 10,000 troop cut? And will the Chancellor make sure that investing in our national security becomes a lever for economic growth, putting a much greater emphasis on British steel producers and SMEs as we scale up our defences? And will the Chancellor ensure that British start-ups can use defence innovation for the public good? Before I conclude, Madam Deputy Speaker, I must thank the Chancellor for finally completing the world's slowest U-turn on the unfair winter fuel payments cut. Now that the Chancellor has U-turned, will she do the right thing and backdate the payment for all those who lost out on support this past winter, but who would now be eligible under the new rules? And now the Chancellor has U-turned once, will she make it a hat-trick and also change course on PIP and carers allowance cuts as well? Perhaps the Chancellor might even look again at the growth-crushing jobs tax and other changes affecting our high streets, small businesses and family businesses, and instead look at the fairer ways of raising revenue that we Liberal Democrats have set out time and time again, raising the same amount of revenue from the big banks, the social media giants and the online gambling companies to start paying their fair share of tax. Madam Deputy Speaker, after years of chaos and incompetence under the last Conservative government, this was a unique opportunity to draw a line under the social care crisis, squeezed budgets and sluggish economic growth. So I strongly urge the Chancellor, will she ignore those who talk down Britain's economic potential? Will she rip up the red tape holding British businesses back? And will she strike a properly ambitious trade deal with Europe that will turbocharge our economy and bring in the billions to rebuild our public services? The government says its #1 mission is growth. This would be the way to deliver it.
Chancellor.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I thank the Honourable Lady for her comments. I know she hasn't had a chance to look at the figures yet, but it's not right to say that there are real terms cuts to public services. Public service spending is increasing by 2.3% a year on average over the course of the spending review. If we start on investment in the NHS and in social care, we've already delivered, as I set out in my speech, 1,500 more GPs. We've put £26 billion already in the first phase of the spending review into the NHS. I just note that compares to the £8 billion of money you said you were going to, the Liberal Democrats said they were going to put into the NHS in their manifesto. We've already put £26 billion in, and we've put more money in today in every year of this Parliament. The new hospital programme is being rolled out, and the Health Secretary met, I think, just last week with members of Parliament who are having hospital improvements in their local communities, including with many Liberal Democrat MPs. So she should be aware that we are making improvements to the fabric of our hospitals, as well as investing in technology and scanners, etc., to improve productivity in our health service. With regards to social care, we are, as the Honourable Lady knows, we are introducing the Fair Pay Agreement in social care. That's something that the Health Secretary and my right honourable friend, the Deputy Prime Minister, are very much committed to. We've increased, as she'll know when she looks at the documents, local government spending power so we can put more money into social care. And in addition, Louise Casey is doing her review into the future of social care. On investment in infrastructure, yes, we are going big on infrastructure. £100 billion more announced in the budget last year, another £13 billion in the spring statement, and we're backing that up with skills, as I set out in my speech and as detailed in the spending review documents. Biggest ever investment in young people's skills so that they can access the new jobs that are being created in defence, in house building, in other infrastructure too. On the issue of red tape and backing business, I mean, I just think it's a little bit ironic, Madam Deputy Speaker, when they voted against the Planning and Infrastructure Bill yesterday, that they come to the House today saying they want to do away with red tape and go for growth. Well, we want to go for growth. That's why we took that legislation through Parliament, and perhaps she'll ask her Lords in to vote for growth in the other place. On trade deals, we've done a trade deal with the US, with India and with the EU. I think that the Liberal Democrats opposed the trade deal with the US, but now apparently they think that trade deals are the way to go. Well, so do we. That's why my right honourable friend, the Business and Trade Secretary, has got 3 of them that are helping our automotive sector, our steel sector and our farming communities. On defence, yes, we will use defence spending to support growth. The Defence Secretary and I have been very clear about that, and as I set out in the speech, making Britain a defence industrial superpower. But I would just sort of say, gently to the Liberal Democrats and the Honourable Lady, if you want to support investment in public services, you've got to increase the tax rises to get there. And so they voted against the national insurance increase, which is what has enabled us to make the investments that I've set out today. Now, the Honourable Lady says she wants a wealth tax. Well, we changed inheritance tax. We changed inheritance tax, and the Liberal Democrats voted against it. We introduced VAT on private schools. The Liberal Democrats voted against it. So either they are serious about investing in public services, in which case they need to back the tax increases, or they want to go down the route of the magic money tree party opposite, where they're just going to borrow more to pay for things. And on the winter fuel allowance, we've made our choices clear. We're going to keep the means test, but it will be paid to people with a pension less than £35,000. I think the Liberal Democrats want to make it a universal benefit again. Oh, OK, that's just the Tories. Well, they need to explain how they would pay for it. So, look, I appreciate the fact that she welcomes some of our policies, but I would just say that the job of Chancellor and the job of government is to make sure that the sums add up. And we made difficult decisions last October, but I stand by those difficult decisions, because without them, today we would not have been able to make the investments we've made in schools, in energy and in our health service. I'm proud of what we've achieved as a government. I'm proud of the investment that we're putting in today.
Bill Esterson.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. The Warm Homes Plan will mean healthier homes, it will mean warmer homes, it will see lower bills, and It will create jobs in communities right across the country. It is a very good plan, especially for those facing fuel poverty. The last government's home energy programme changed every few months, which meant that businesses couldn't plan and consumers had no confidence in it, not to mention the scandalous misapplication of fixed wall insulation. So will my right honourable friend confirm that this is a long-term warm homes plan that will deliver warmer homes and cut bills to the benefit of millions of our constituents for years to come?
I thank the Chair of the Select Committee for that intervention. Warm homes is a big part of our plan to tackle the cost of living crisis. And the money that we've put into the Warm Homes plan today will mean millions more homes being able to be retrofitted with better boilers, with insulation, with solar panels. And that on average takes £600 a year of people's bills, not just for 1 year, but for every year to come. And my honourable friend is absolutely right that what we've done today is set out a 5-year package of capital investment, because it is crucial that the industry is able to plan for the future, and young people are therefore willing to train up, and the businesses are willing to invest in apprenticeships. And so that's why on all of our capital spending, including the Warm Homes plan, we've set out a 5-year plan.
Dame Harriet Baldwin.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. And my constituents in Tenbury Wells, where they're seeking funding for the flood defence scheme, will have listened very closely to the Chancellor's remarks today to hear her mention flood defence capital spending, and yet it wasn't mentioned in her speech. So can she confirm that the capital that will be allocated in this spending review period to flood defences is going to be as high in real terms as it was in the previous Parliament?
Chancellor.
Well, the right honourable lady knows that we increased money for flood defences in the spending review in autumn last year, because we knew that there was no time to waste. So we have already increased that flood defence spending in addition to what the previous government was spending.
Liam Byrne.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. This spending review is good for business. It's good for Britain's business because it invests in the things that British business need. It invests in skills, in infrastructure, in innovation, it cuts red tape and it supports small firms. But can the Chancellor just clarify that this spending review will also now open a new era of energy abundance for our country? The Business Committee heard directly from the IMF in Washington yesterday that high energy costs are now holding back growth. That is a consequence of the dither and the delay from the party opposite that left us with the highest industrial energy costs in Europe. Will she now confirm for the House that we are now consigning that era to our history?
Chancellor.
I thank my right honourable friend for his question, and he's right, we're backing innovation, backing skills, backing infrastructure, because we are backing British business. And we're also cutting red tape, as we did yesterday when we took the Planning and Infrastructure Bill through the House, making it easier to get things built in Britain again. And as we make the investments, we want those jobs to come here to Britain, including in the energy sector, whether that is investment in small modular reactors, in Sizewell C, in carbon capture and storage, or indeed floating offshore wind. And we'll be setting out in the next couple of weeks the industrial strategy, where we'll have more to say about energy costs for business.
Gavin Robinson.
Madam Deputy Speaker, can I thank the Chancellor for engaging productively in the discussions around sustainable budgets for Northern Ireland, the willingness to negotiate further and the recognition that our need levels should be met. So I thank her for that engagement. Can I also thank her too for the allocations to Northern Ireland for specific community projects that have been advanced by us. Can I just say to her that she has chosen through this allocation to make a budget available for the redevelopment of Casement Park. She will know about the political nature of some of the concerns around that, and that in all previous agreements in the Executive, these things have been advanced in a balanced and a non-partisan way. This government has chosen to step into this issue in an unbalanced and a partisan way. And so what I wish to ask the Chancellor is that in making financial transactions capital available, or £50 million over the course of the next spending period, will she ensure that when there is a need, and there is, for investment in football to return to the Executive's agreement of 2011 in a balanced and non-partisan way, that she will not be found wanting?
I thank the honourable gentleman for his question and the way in which he put it. I was pleased to be able to announce in the spending review today the settlement for Northern Ireland, but also money through MHCLG as well. He mentions Casement Park, and we have put £50 million in this spending review. I will arrange for a meeting for the honourable gentleman with either the Northern Ireland Secretary or a minister from my department to talk through what he wants to see.
Helen Hayes.
Madam Deputy Speaker, can I welcome the focus my right honourable friend the Chancellor has placed on children and young people in this spending review, with additional investment in children's social care, schools and skills. These announcements show the Government's commitment to improving the life chances of every child, and my committee looks forward to scrutinising the detail in the coming weeks. The Chancellor will know that universities are the life force of many local economies, generating jobs, improving skills and boosting life chances. Yet a number of our universities are at the brink of insolvency, and the sector has been calling for a transformation fund to help universities reform and secure a sustainable future. So can the Chancellor confirm that she will work with Cabinet colleagues to ensure that no town or city has to face the calamity of a university going bust?
Chancellor.
I thank the Chair of the Select Committee, my honourable friend, for that question, and appreciate her welcoming the investment in children's social care, in skills and in schools, an issue that she knows and cares passionately about. In the spending review, we were able to set out £86 billion in total of investment in R&D, much of that spent through our universities and our research institutes. But I'm certain that the Education Secretary or the relevant Minister would meet with her to talk about the wider allocation from this spending review.
John Glenn.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Scientists at Porton Down, at the UK Health Security Agency, make a massive contribution to the welfare of our country in difficult times. 10 years ago, the Chancellor's predecessor wanted to invest £525 million, moving to a single science hub in Harlow. £400 million has already been spent, and the NAO last year said it would cost £3.2 billion to complete the move by 2036. 3 weeks ago I had an adjournment debate, and I was told that today we would know the outcome of what was actually going to happen with this project. Could I ask the Chancellor what is happening with the future of UK HSA at Porton Down? Is it going to move to Harlow at massive expense, 6 times the original estimate, 15 years later than was estimated, or can we save some money and use that money for better investment in our public estate?
Chancellor.
I thank the right honourable gentleman, a member of the Treasury Select Committee, for his question. We've made the allocation to the Department of Health, £29 billion annual uplift, and it will be up to the Secretary of State to allocate that money. But I will make sure that he's heard your question and gets a proper reply to you.
Louise Jones.
Very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. With £2.5 billion investment into nuclear in Derby, £2.5 billion into nuclear fusion in North Nottinghamshire, and £500 million into steel suitable for use in the nuclear industry in Sheffield, I note that my constituency of North East Derbyshire is surrounded by wonderful opportunities in these industries of the future. Can the Chancellor outline what more we can do to support young people in my constituency to access careers in this industry?
Chancellor.
Thank my honourable friend for that question. But we were proud as a government to be able to step in and save British Steel at Scunthorpe, and I thank again my honourable friend, the member for Scunthorpe. But it's not just Scunthorpe, also opportunities in Sheffield and at Port Talbot, because as we build this infrastructure, whether it's trams and trains or nuclear power or submarines, we want to use steel made in Britain. And that's a really exciting opportunity, and the investments that we're putting in small modular reactors and fusion in Nottinghamshire and Derby create great opportunities for jobs, and that's why we're also in this spending review putting record investment in skills so that young people in North East Derbyshire and beyond can get access to the jobs being created.
Liz Saville-Roberts.
The announcement of just £44.5 million a year for the next 10 years for Welsh Rail is Labour's flimsy fig leaf of an excuse for the multi-billion and multi-decade scandal that is HS2.
Yeah.
The money announced today is only significant if it matches what Wales will continue to lose from all England-only rail projects up to now and in future. So can the Chancellor guarantee that Wales will, from now on, receive the full £4 billion HS2 consequential funding, or will she admit that her announcement on Welsh rail funding is nothing but smoke and mirrors?
Chancellor.
I do think say that £445 million isn't real money. That's going to invest in those Burns Review stations, and in addition, we are putting £118 million to make the coal tip safe. Well, maybe she's not that concerned about that, but I know plenty of Welsh Labour MPs are.
Matthew Patrick.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I wonder if the Chancellor can help me, because I want to write a letter to my constituents in Wirral West, and I don't know which story I should lead with. Whether it should be the record investment in our NHS to get more doctors' appointments, the money for our police to get more police on the streets, whether it should be the transport investment to get new train stations, or the money to give hungry children in my constituency free school meals. Could she help me out? I've only got one page. What should I start with?
Chancellor.
Well, you want to have that bit on the leaflet to remind them that you were lobbying for all of these things, so you can take the thanks.
Dave Dugan.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I welcome the U-turn on the winter fuel payment. Of course, I do, and lots of my constituents will do likewise, but there's no respite in this spending review for the farmers in Scotland, the business owners in Scotland, the GP surgeries or the disabled in hospices in Scotland. And there's a real terms cut, despite what she says, to the Home Office, Foreign Office and local government in this spending review. Now, the Chancellor's an open book, Madam Deputy Speaker. She plays roulette with the economy, but I wouldn't encourage her to play poker anytime soon, because she mentioned reform and the Honourable Member for Clacton more times in her speech than she mentioned Scotland. What a disgrace. So what funding? She mentioned she's finally got round to Acorn. What funding is she going to allocate for Acorn? Because she mentioned it without a figure attached. Now, we know that if it's Merseyside or Teesside, there's 22 billion for them. How much for Acorn?
Chancellor.
Well, I did mention the SNP. I questioned why the SNP don't support defence investments in Scotland. But I can mention the SNP again if you'd like to. Why have the SNP let down the people of Scotland with rising hospital waiting lists? Why have the SNP let down people in Scotland with more drugs death? Why have the people of the SNP let down people time and time again? We are putting money into Acorn, we are putting money into a defence investment, and we are giving a record settlement to the SNP government, but hopefully they won't be there for much longer.
Florence Eshamurley.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. And can I thank my right honourable friend, the Chancellor, for prioritising affordable housing today. This extra investment is going to go a long way to the overdue, spiralling, broken housing system, which has pushed so many people into poverty. Last year, we saw a record 126,000 households facing homelessness, and an increase of over 17,000 in 1 year alone. We see so many families placed in what we call temporary accommodation, which isn't temporary, because 5 years plus more is far from temporary. Children travelling hours to get to schools, families not having the space to grow up, and we've lost a decade of building social homes that we need. So I join with the likes of Shelter, the National Housing Federation, in welcoming investment in affordable housing and the certainty of a 10-year rent settlement. But these measures need more. And we need to build the truly social homes. So can the Chancellor confirm what proportion of social rent will form the backbone of this affordable homes programme to get those families into a safe and secure, stable home?
Chancellor.
Well, I thank my honourable friend for her campaigning on these issues of housing and homelessness, which is a big challenge in many of our constituencies, including hers in Vauxhall. We now want to work closely with local councils and also the Mayor of London to build the affordable homes that we desperately need in the capital city, where house prices and rents are still far too high for so many families. And I look forward to working with my honourable friend on just that.
Sir Geoffrey Clifton-Brown.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. The billions of pounds that have been announced today by the Chancellor are very big rises. The PAC looks forward to scrutinising that expenditure because I'm sure it'll be welcomed by those who receive it to make sure we're getting value for money. However, could the Chancellor explain to the House how it's going to be funded? Because debt is at a record level, tax is at a record level, or is it the case that British workers can look forward to a summer expecting more tax increases?
Chancellor.
Well, I look forward to that scrutiny, but the honourable gentleman will know that the allocations we've made today is based on the tax increases that we made in the budget last year. So we're not spending a single penny more or a single penny less than the money that we set out in the autumn budget and the spring statement.
Ruth Cadbury.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I welcome the significant transport investment that the Chancellor has announced today in the North and in the city regions. This is helped through her changes to the Green Book. But when will the place-based business cases be reviewed so that these local areas can start planning for that local transport initiatives that they've so long waited for?
Chancellor.
Well, I hope that the my honourable friend can already see the impact of our change attitude and our change perspective at the Treasury by putting this record investment, £15.6 billion that we announced last week, into 8 mayoral combined authorities to better connect towns and cities. And because of the changes we've made, it is why we've been able today to put more money into the Trans-Pennine route upgrade, the Midlands hub, and indeed significant investment in trains in Wales.
Tim Farron.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. My community in Westbourne will be outraged by a 17% reduction in farm funding, and we will be perplexed, and are perplexed, because we were told to expect today a decision on the vital scheme to dual the A66 from Penrith to Scotch Corner, which is crucial to east-west connectivity, the northern economy, and to saving lives. There was no mention in the statement or in the accompanying document at all. Will she confirm now that the A66 upgrade will take place?
Chancellor.
I thank the right honourable gentleman for that question. The allocation has now been made to the Department for Transport. We haven't set out every project that's going to fund today, and I'm sure that the Transport Secretary will come to this House or the relevant Select Committee in due course.
Graham Downey.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. Can I thank the Chancellor of the Exchequer, in particular putting her faith in young people for the future with investments in AI, nuclear and defence, opportunities which young people in Scotland deserve, alongside £1.2 billion for training and apprenticeships. Meanwhile, in my own constituency, Fife College has recently warned of course cuts and campus closures thanks to the mismanagement of the Scottish budget by the SNP. Does she agree with me that the best way to get the opportunities that young people deserve in defence, nuclear and other industries is with a Scottish Labour government and Anas Sarwar as First Minister?
Well, I think we saw in the by-election last week how desperate the people of Scotland are for change after 2 decades of SNP so-called leadership. We are putting investment in training and apprenticeships in this spending review, and I very much hope the SNP will match that in Scotland.
Richard Tice.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Well, the Chancellor inherited supposedly a black hole, and she's dug a crater into which public confidence is plunging. Business confidence is plunging. And the truth is, jobs, 250,000 jobs are disappearing since the blunder budget. And despite all the noise we hear from the benches opposite, the reality is that government spending is completely out of control. Inflation is up, unemployment is up, government borrowing is up, and the cost of government borrowing is up. And the only thing that's going down are jobs and GDP. But I have some good news for the Chancellor. In the 10 councils that we control, Madam Deputy Speaker, that we control, we're already identifying savings of hundreds of millions of pounds. She may want to learn some lessons. That, Madam Deputy Speaker, is why reform is leading in the polls.
Chancellor.
Well, I noted recently on a podcast that the honourable member said that he wanted to cut government spending by £300 billion. Well, that would mean getting rid of the whole of the NHS and the whole of the defence budget. We have increased spending by £300 billion to invest in our schools, our hospitals, our transport and our defence. I know that the party on those benches is soft on defence, soft on workers' rights and want to privatise our NHS. I don't think that is the priorities of the British people.
John Brady.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I may say reforms economic policies appear to have been cooked up after a heavy night at Moe's Bars and The Simpsons. 18 years of the SNP. They have failed to invest in Glasgow's transport infrastructure. We have no airport rail link, no Parkhead station. We don't even have lifts at Bridgeton Station. And I contrast this, Madam Deputy Speaker, with the Right Honourable Friend, the Chancellor of the Exchequer's firm commitment to transport. Does my Right Honourable Friend agree with me that £50 billion extra for the Scottish Government to sort out the SNP's NHS waiting lists? Record investment in the defence industry in Clyde to defend our nation, which the SNP object to. Investment in clean energy, critical for jobs in Glasgow. And continued support for the Glasgow and Clyde Valley City deal demonstrates that Scotland runs through the heart of this Labour government, and it's time we turfed out the SNP after 18 years of failure.
In the spending review today, we've set out investment in defence to support jobs in Scotland, investment in Acorn to support jobs in Scotland, investment in nuclear, which will benefit the people of Scotland with lower bills, and a record settlement for the Scottish Government. It's up to them now to use that money wisely. I wouldn't hold out much hope under the SNP.
Esther McVeigh.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. Now, I know the Chancellor considers herself to be a world-leading economist, so can she tell me how it is that everyone in the country knew that by hiking taxes on employers' national insurance contribution, making it more expensive to employ people, would destroy jobs, destroy businesses and destroy the economy, but the only people who didn't know that was her and her socialist boss.
Chancellor of the Exchequer.
I'm sorry to disappoint the Right Honourable Lady, but there are 500,000 more jobs in Britain since the last general election, and business confidence is going up.
Jeevan Sandhu.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. My constituency of Loughborough, Shepshed and the Villages is in the East Midlands, a region that has been overlooked for too long. That ends today. Firstly, we're taking to the Green Book, which we all welcome, more money outside of London. I hope my colleagues don't mind too much. And secondly, over £100 billion of investment. So can the Chancellor please set out how today's investment will get bills down and wages rising in my constituency of Loughborough, Shepshed and the Villages?
Chancellor.
I thank my honourable friend for welcoming the changes to the Green Book, which will better enable the government to invest and will stop the situation where the Treasury used to wield the Green Book against local communities and the investments that they wanted to make. And this was a good spending review for the East Midlands, as my honourable friend mentioned, with investment in nuclear fusion and also in small modular reactors. And many businesses in those supply chains right across the East Midlands will benefit from that significant investment and the jobs it brings too.
Bobby Dean.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Last year during the mayoral election, Sadiq Khan claimed that a Labour mayor working for the Labour government would be a game changer for the city. But just now he's released a statement criticising the spending review for underfunding the Met Police, failing to invest in our transport infrastructure and potentially making the housing crisis in our capital worse. Was Sadiq Khan wrong to put his trust in this Labour government?
Yes.
Well, for London today, we have increased the spending power of the police by 2.3% in real terms every year, a record investment in the Affordable Homes Programme to include building new homes in London, free school meals, lifting around 10,000 children in London out of poverty, and much more. We've also backing a third runway at Heathrow and investing in tunnelling to take HS2 to to Euston. So this is a good budget for London, but most importantly, it is a good spending review for the whole of the United Kingdom.
Alex Baker.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Can I congratulate the Chancellor on the spending review and welcome both her commitment to defence spending and to us being a defence industrial superpower, which is so vital for my community of Aldershot and Farnborough. This week, my honourable friend for York Outer and I published our report on rewiring British defence finance to support her work to fire up our defence industrial base. As part of this, will the Chancellor support my campaign for a UK-led multilateral defence, security and resilience bank to finance our national resilience, support our allies and keep our country safe?
I thank my honourable friend for that question, and I also would like to thank her for the work that her and the member for York Outer, my honourable friend for York Outer, have done in making the moral case for financial services firms investing in defence, because it is what keeps our country safe. And as we uplift our defence spending, we do want to get value for money for that. That's why we were pleased in the deal that we did with the EU that we have also secured a defence industrial partnership with the EU.
Adrian Ramsey.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Across the country, people are seeing their health services severely overstretched. School head teachers are faced with having to make cuts. And of course, the most vulnerable people in society are now facing cuts to disability benefits. The BBC has produced analysis on the Chancellor's statement today, saying that her figures will show a sharp decline in budgets for public services after 2026. So isn't the statement that we've seen today a matter of smoke and mirrors? And will she instead consider the growing call for a wealth tax on the ultra-wealthy so she can raise the tens of billions extra needed to support our public services and restore the much-needed pride and hope in Britain? Not supporting it.
It's difficult to know whether the honourable gentleman supports the spending review and the additional money that we put into public services today, or he's against it. The settlement for the NHS is 3% real terms growth a year. For the police, it's 2.3% a year. It's an increase in per pupil funding, as well as real terms increasing for the schools budget. So I'm not exactly sure what his complaint is.
Nick Smith.
Madam Deputy Speaker, there was a terrible, dangerous coal slip in my constituency last autumn. So the coal tips safety funding that's to be announced today is hugely welcomed.
Yeah.
It's great to see our Labour government standing up for Wales.
Yeah.
Looking forward, can the Chancellor please review the miners' staff superannuation scheme? Hard-working families deserve fairness in their retirement. I'm sure she'll give them a fair hearing.
Yeah.
I thank my honourable gentleman, my honourable friend for that question. I'm really pleased we were able to make this multi-year commitment around coal tips safety. We put in money as a government last year in the spending review, but that was just for 1 year. And what we've been able to do is give certainty that money will be available to do that vital work that is necessary. I thank him for welcoming it. It's a shame that Plaid Cymru did not welcome it. On the issue of miners' pension, my honourable friend has been a staunch supporter of reforms to the miners' pension scheme. We made reforms in the budget last year, but I'll make sure that the relevant minister meets with my honourable friend to discuss what more we can do to ensure a fair pension for miners in retirement.
Sarah Olney.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. London MPs were hoping to hear more about infrastructure investment in the capital in this spending review today. We are looking for spending on the Bakerloo line extension, the Croydon bottleneck. I even dare to dream that Hammersmith Bridge might one day be fixed. But all we've heard from the Chancellor is her reiterated support for Heathrow expansion. Now, the Chancellor will know that Heathrow expansion is opposed by every political party in the capital, including the Mayor of London. It is not welcome. The negligible economic benefits of expanding Heathrow are not supported, do not support the massive environmental and noise impacts that it will have on many people across the capital, particularly my constituents in Richmond Park. So can I ask her to look again at her support for Heathrow and consider the greater merits of many other infrastructure projects across London? Thank you.
She started that question wanting to be a builder, and she ended that question by being a blocker. I guess that's not surprising, because the Liberal Democrats voted against the planning and infrastructure bill that came through Parliament yesterday, while we on this side of the House supported it because we want to get Britain building to create prosperity and wealth in all of our communities. We've provided in the spending review today an integrated settlement for the Mayor of London, and also a multi-year settlement for Transport for London. In addition to that, we have supported expansion at City, and we've got a in principle commitment to expansion with a second runway at Gatwick. This government is backing London, but most importantly, we're a government for the whole country, which is why we've announced significant investments right across the UK today, which are much needed.
Claire Hanna.
The SDLP's priority continues to be funding Northern Ireland on the basis of need, and I urge focused action so we can have sustainable public services and hopefully stable politics to start to deliver in health and education and the squeeze in housing and childcare. I also warmly welcome the funding allocation for Casement Park, which represents much more than just a stadium. It is a home for Ulster GAA to match the wonderful homes we have for soccer and rugby in Northern Ireland, and it's a flagship venue for West Belfast and an economic opportunity for the whole city. Would the Chancellor agree with me that while there's a way to go to get the funding for the stadium that the GAA's hundreds of thousands of supporters and volunteers deserve, that the onus is now on the Stormont Executive, on Sinn Féin, on the DUP, on the Alliance Party to get moving, to end a decade of dither and delay, and to finally get Casement Park built?
Well, this government has provided £50 million in the spending review today, but we've also done much more, I hope, for Northern Ireland, with a record settlement, a record since devolution, and also significant investment in our defence sector, where Northern Ireland has a proud history of producing for the UK's defence needs.
Martin Vickers.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Of course, I welcome the continuing support for Scunthorpe Steelworks. I would just gently remind the Chancellor that that came 7 months after I first raised the issue here in the House, and we then had the panic of the Saturday sitting in April. But moving on from that, she mentioned the support for the Viking CCS project, which again is something I've been lobbying for a long time. Could she give a little more detail in terms of the time frame for that?
I thank the honourable gentleman for welcoming what we did with British Steel at Scunthorpe. I know that he's been a strong voice advocating for British Steel in Scunthorpe, unlike some of our late arrivals in another party. On Viking and carbon capture and storage, really pleased alongside the Acorn investment in Aberdeenshire to be able to announce that today. The Energy Secretary will set out in due course the timing and the money available, but after what we did with Merseyside and Teesside at the end of last year, investing in carbon capture and storage, we're now in a position to put investment into that second tranche at Aberdeen and also in the Humber.
Yeah. Yasmin Qureshi.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I want to thank the Chancellor for all the spending commitments that she's made, whether it's education, whether it's health or transport. But I want to particularly refer to the £39 billion that she's committing to housing. In my constituency of Bolton South and Walkden, thousands of families are still waiting for a social home, with Bolton housing waiting list about 20,000. Can I ask the Chancellor what some of the money or funding is directed towards building more social housing in areas like mine, so that we can meet the need of our constituents?
My honourable friend speaks powerfully about the desperate need for more social and affordable homes in all of our communities, including in Bolton. And this multi-year commitment with £39 billion of investment will help to build the social and affordable homes that our country desperately needs. And the Department for the MHCLG will now work with local authorities to bring forward those plans and get Britain building those homes that we need.
Dr Ben Spencer.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker.
Hear, hear.
What's in some ways most interesting about the spending review is what's not mentioned. No mention of the Road Thames scheme, no mention of our rivers, no mention of the Animal Plant and Health Agency in Newhall, no mention of improvements to rail despite nationalisation of South Western Railway, almost in fact no mention of the South East at all, despite us saying that this is a spending review for the whole UK. But they do effectively confirm a third runway, despite no local engagement. Can I invite the Chancellor to come to Runnymede and Weybridge to meet people and see if their priorities are indeed hers, as she claims?
It's difficult to understand exactly what the Conservative critique is of this spending review, because the Shadow Chancellor says that we should spend less, and the Honourable Gentleman has just asked us to spend more. Now, if you want to spend more, if honourable members on any side of the House want to spend more, they need to say where the money is going to come from. I'm not sure if he's got an answer to that.
Burla McAvoy.
Speaker, I welcome the Chancellor's statement and her steely determination to make sure that everyone in Darlington is better off. I particularly welcome the capital infrastructure projects that are not only essential for sovereign security but also for regional growth. Does she agree with me that these projects will be transformational for engineering and fabricating SMEs in my constituency, many of whom were set up and staffed by incredibly high-skilled people who found themselves out of a job when the last government turned its back on British foundation industries?
I thank my honourable friend for that question. Look, she's absolutely right that what this spending review does through its investment in infrastructure is create jobs in our supply chains for small businesses in communities right across our country. And that investment in some of our foundational industries like steel offers real opportunities for good jobs, paying decent wages, good unionised jobs. And I'm really proud to be able to set out that investment and the jobs that young people in Darlington and around the country will be able to access because of the choices we've made today.
Chris Coughlin.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. As the Chancellor knows, our economy will only escape its difficult place if we raise economic productivity. And on the Treasury Select Committee, I introduced the Chancellor to London Business School's Paolo Sirocco's research on how using public R&D, especially defence spending, can help to do this. In the spring statement, the government used Professor Sirocco's research to upgrade long-term GDP forecasts by 11 billion a year. That's how you pay for it. So I strongly welcome the government's commitment to investing in public R&D in the spending review. But how will the Chancellor follow through to ensure that the R&D will be used to crowd in and stimulate public investment, especially from the more innovative, high-tech startups and venture capital firms, which is necessary to realise the potential of Professor Sirocco's research?
I thank the honourable gentleman for that question. For every pound of government investment in R&D, it crowds in £2 of private investment and returns £7 of benefit to the wider economy. That's why we put £86 billion of investment into R&D over the course of this spending review.
Imran Hussain.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I'm sure people in your constituency, Madam Deputy Speaker, my constituency, my honourable friend for Shipley's constituency, and indeed in the Chancellor's own constituency, will welcome greatly the £2.1 billion in a new tram and in particular a new bus station in Bradford, as well as the billions for social and affordable housing that is much needed. But the Chancellor will know in my constituency over half of all children are still growing up in poverty, which is true of constituencies of many honourable members. Child poverty is not a statistic, it's a national disgrace. And it's as a direct result of 14 years of ideological austerity by those opposite. Today's statement is a step in the right direction, in particular with the announcement of 500,000 more children eligible for free school meals. But frankly, it doesn't go far enough. So will the Chancellor tell me what further measures this government will announce to alleviate and finish child poverty, including scrapping the two-child limit which continues to put thousands of children into poverty?
I thank my honourable friend for that question, and I appreciate him welcoming the £2.1 billion for West Yorkshire Combined Authority, which will help pay for mass transit to connect Leeds and Bradford, but also Kirklees and Calderdale. In the statement today, we were able to provide money for free school meals for 500,000 children, lifting 100,000 out of poverty, as well as continuing to roll out breakfast clubs and the Warm Homes programme, which will help insulate and bring down the bills for millions of families. In addition, we increased the national living wage by nearly 7%, and the Employment Rights Bill will ensure that more people have security and dignity at work, all part of our plan for change and lifting children and families out of poverty.
Sir Gavin Williamson.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. HS2 owns vast swathes of the Staffordshire countryside. In fact, it owns a third of all the properties in the village of Hopton. This is having an enormous impact on residents and causing an enormous blight. Could the Chancellor set out to the House and to so many constituents of mine and right across Staffordshire as to when they're going to know whether the farmers are going to be able to have their land back and whether villages will be able to return to normal life with people being able to move into those empty houses?
Well, I'm sure that the right honourable gentleman has apologised to his constituents for the total mess that the party opposite made of HS2. Now, we're fixing their mess, getting a grip of the costs of that project. But frankly, for the honourable gentleman to raise HS2 after the mess they made of it, it is astounding.
Melanie Ward.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Almost 20 years of the SNP in government in Scotland, and we have 43,000 Fifers on an NHS waiting list, and a growing gap in educational achievement between kids from the richest and poorest areas. Less than 1 year of a Labour UK government, and we are delivering record funding for Scotland, falling energy bills, a pay rise for 8,000 Fifers, new defence jobs in Fife, and an announcement that will be warmly welcomed by my constituents today: new investment in the renewal of Kirkcaldy Town Centre and the potential of our amazing seafront. Does the Chancellor agree that this is the difference a Labour government makes?
I thank my honourable friend for that question. And the work that we are doing as a Labour government will reduce inequality. We're giving a pay rise to millions of workers, defence jobs paying a decent wage, GB Energy headquartered in Scotland. And today I've been able to announce additional investment in the seafront in her constituency for the economic benefits that that will bring.
Robin Swan.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. An NHS fit for the future. So can I congratulate the Chancellor and the Health Secretary in that investment in the health service in England. But in that real term spend and the money allocated to Northern Ireland, would the Chancellor encourage the Northern Ireland Executive at a minimum to see that same investment in the health service in Northern Ireland? Because Northern Ireland Executive has been working with single-year budgets since 2016. And would the Chancellor agree with this SR, it allows them to set a multi-year recurrent budget that allows the transformation of health services and other public services in Northern Ireland?
The honourable gentleman makes a really important point, because what we did today wasn't just set out money for next year, but for day-to-day spending, money for the next 3 years, and for capital for the next 5 years. And that is vital wherever you are in the UK, that local councils, devolved administrations, community groups can plan for the future with confidence. And that's what we've done with this spending review. And so I would urge devolved administrations to do similar and make those multi-year settlements to give certainty for the future.
Rachel Maskell.
Deputy Speaker, despite being the lowest funded unitary authority in the country, we are doing everything possible to drive down inequality in the city, but it stays at 13 years differential. So today's announcement, investment in health, investment in social housing, investment in education will make a real difference for my constituents. However, I do worry about the inequality for disabled people in our country. So will the Chancellor give assurances? I've looked through the statement. Will she give assurances that if disabled people are unable to work, that they won't be left behind either, and that we will ensure we've got the social security that they need so that they also can gain from today's statement?
I thank my honourable friend for that question, and part of the investment in the north of England includes Transpennine Route upgrade, which her and I think would both very much welcome. The investments in health and education are important, but of course so too is supporting disabled people. And that's why in the spending review there is £1 billion set aside to help get people back to work, because there are many people who are disabled who are desperate to work if the right support is available. But of course the social security system, the welfare state, must always be there for people who cannot work, and under this Labour government it will be.
Adam Dance.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I heard very little about Somerset. Somerset is facing huge pressure around GP practices, affordable homes, SEND provision, reliable bus services and access to affordable energy. Can the Chancellor promise my constituents that Yeovil will not be overlooked? And does she believe that the decisions announced today leave Somerset Council and the government departments with enough to properly invest in communities in Yeovil?
Let me put that right. The people of Somerset will benefit from a 3% uplift in NHS spending. The people of Somerset will benefit from free school meals if they are their children, if they are on universal credit. The people of Somerset will benefit from stronger defences and stronger borders through the investment that we have put in. This is a spending review for the whole country, including people in Yeovil in Somerset.
Breat Gill.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. And the Chancellor visited Birmingham last week, and she knows that the West Midlands region has the talent and the ideas to thrive. A fair settlement in today's spending review isn't just sport, it's a smart investment in Britain's future. Over 26,000 people are on the housing register in Birmingham. So can I thank the Chancellor for doubling investment in the Affordable Homes Programme and the Midlands Rail Hub announcement that I've been campaigning for? And does she agree with me that this will be transformational to deliver a decade of renewal and growth that works for everyone?
I thank my honourable friend for that question. And we will build more housing. That's what the investment in the Affordable Homes Grant will achieve. But also it goes alongside transport investment, significant transport investment in the West Midlands and in Birmingham. And I was very pleased that my honourable friend was able to join me in Birmingham last week, where we were able to celebrate investment to extend the metro out to East Birmingham and then to Solihull.
Lincoln Jopp.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I fear that the Chancellor might... I'd like to thank the Chancellor for her statement, and I fear she may have misunderstood what my friend from Runnymede and Weybridge was asking in reference to the River Thames scheme, because he asked whether the River Thames scheme is included in the 4.2 of Teedale over 3, reference to paragraph 5121 in the statement. And the Chancellor, in reply, said he wants to put expenditure up and won't say where it's coming from. I think both he and I are asking, is the River Thames scheme funded from within the EA's half of it, because Surrey County Council pay the other half, in the 4.2 Teedale that she's announced today?
She won't know the answer to that.
The allocations have been made to government departments, and it will be up to the departments. The Treasury is not going to micromanage every scheme, so it will be up to departments to allocate the money in the way that they choose to. And I'm sure that the Transport Secretary will come to the House and set out those plans.
Rachel Blair.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. This spending review reports that there will be a report from the Office for Value for Money about temporary accommodation and the terrible waste of money that is going into the poorly procured temporary accommodation. Madam Deputy Speaker, 90,000 children live in temporary accommodation in London. Does the Chancellor agree with me that £39 billion into new genuinely affordable homes, combined with this review into the cost of temporary accommodation is really positive for all of those children living in London who sadly do not have a permanent home into the future? And does she agree with me that this will make a transformational change in London?
Yeah.
I thank my honourable friend for that question, and she's spoken to me powerfully on many occasions about how much Westminster City Council has to spend on temporary accommodation, and that's why this investment in the Affordable Homes Grant is so important, not just for London but for the whole country. But there are specific issues, as I said in the answer to the question from my honourable friend from Vauxhall. There are particular challenges in London because of the extraordinary levels of house prices and rents in London. So this investment in affordable and social housing can have a big impact in London, and combined with the additional money for free school meals, the rollout of breakfast clubs, increase in the national living wage, this is a spending review to benefit people across the whole country, including in Westminster, including in London.
Josh Babarinde.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Fellow Eastbournian Mark Tonra and I were gravely ill in the same ward together at Eastbourne District General Hospital last year. And because of the outdated and outgrown hospital buildings at the DGH, Mark harrowingly watched another patient opposite him die from his bay, and other patients watched Mark deteriorate with only a flimsy curtain to protect his dignity before he himself died. The delay to our new hospital will mean that many more Eastbournians will face this indignity until it's fully rebuilt come 2041. And so, short of heeding my town's calls to unlock that investment sooner, will the Chancellor at least confirm to local families like Mark's and my NHS Trust that her NHS capital expenditure will specifically be able to fund the 98% unmet cost of our maintenance backlog in Eastbourne to help more patients get the care and dignity that they deserve?
I thank the honourable gentleman for speaking powerfully about his experience and the experience of his constituents. And after 14 years and broken promises from the party opposite, our hospitals are not in good enough condition. And that's why we've set out the new hospital buildings programme. But it's also why, in the spending review, we've put aside money for improvements to hospital conditions in the meantime. And I will make sure that the relevant health minister meets with the honourable member to talk through what that means for people in Eastbourne.
Chris Webb.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Today's announcement was a great day for Blackpool. I believe Blackpool got mentioned more than any other place in the country. And the Chancellor will know the issues we faced from when she joined me in Blackpool last year and saw for herself the deprivation and the damage of 14 years of the Tories did to our town. So we should confirm today that this is just the start and the beginning of a new investment for deprived areas like Blackpool and across the country. Now we've got a Labour government and a Labour Chancellor in charge.
I thank my honourable friend for that question and how you always passionately argue the case for Blackpool. And yes, there is deprivation in Blackpool, but there is also huge opportunity. And that's why we are backing Blackpool with the investment that we're putting in the spending review today.
Yeah. Jim Allister.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Why does the Chancellor think it appropriate to pledge £50 million on a preferential basis to a sporting organisation which has a political objective as its first and defining attribute, and which has named some of its sports grounds and its trophies after IRA terrorists who brought such death and destruction to Northern Ireland, while other sporting organisations are required to make do with what they were allocated in 2011. Does the Chancellor not see and agree that £50 million could make a far better contribution to meeting housing need and particularly social sewage infrastructural needs, which in my constituency has brought much of building of new housing to a halt? What is the priority here when matters like that are ignored?
Alongside the investment at Casement Park, we've also made a record investment with a record settlement for the Northern Ireland Executive in the announcements that we've set out today. In addition to that, substantial investment in the defence sector, including in Northern Ireland. So there is plenty of money going into Northern Ireland. It now needs to be spent wisely.
Alex Barris-Curtis.
Deputy Speaker. Thank you. Can I commend the Chancellor on her statement and pay tribute to her, to my right honourable friend, the Welsh Secretary, and all my Welsh Labour colleagues for their advocacy for standing up for Wales at this spending review. Can I particularly welcome the investment in coal tips, which will be really important in constituencies across Wales, and in rail. £445 million, turning the tide on 14 years of underinvestment by the 4 Conservatives left on the benches opposite. Can I take the opportunity to use her good offices, seeing she is here, given this substantial rail investment that has been announced, whether she will offer her support to a campaign in my constituency for Ely Mill Station to be built. Now that all those stakeholders have the money they need, they can get on with it, can't they?
We did announce 2 new railway stations in Wales today with the £445 million. And in the 10-year infrastructure strategy that we'll be publishing next week, we'll be setting out more details of investments right across the UK. And I'm pleased as well that he welcomes the £118 million for that coal tips work, which I know is so important and so many Welsh Labour MPs have lobbied me about over the last few months. I'm pleased that we can deliver for your communities in Wales.
Vicky Slade.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I declare my interest as a sitting councillor. I know that local government will be pleased to see that there is an increase in spending and have that clarity. But one area alongside social care which will sink councils is an area we have no clarity on. And that is the statutory override on special educational needs, which was promised time and time again, and we were hanging our hats on having it today. Can the Chancellor tell us what is happening, and can we give security to councils on special educational needs?
The Honourable Lady makes a really important point that there's not a single MP in this House that would not have heard harrowing stories around parents desperate to get the support for their kids with special educational needs. And the Secretary of State for Education will be bringing forward a white paper to make the reforms that are desperately needed. But we'll make sure that we do that in partnership with the parents and children who are most affected.
Chris MacDonald.
Speaker. The Chancellor of the Exchequer may remember that the last Conservative Prime Minister boasted about moving funding from Teesside to Royal Tunbridge Wells, and I'm pleased to see that her statement plugs places like Stockton North back into our economy. Can I thank the Chancellor of the Exchequer for agreeing to make Stockton Central one of the trailblazer areas, investing in our local facilities and also tackling fly tipping and graffiti. And does she agree with me that this statement shows that our Labour government is providing jobs for working people, providing homes for working people, and providing opportunities for our young people?
I thank my honourable friend for that question, and I'm pleased that Stockton will benefit from some of those investments, because Pride in Place is so important for all of our communities. But some of the most deprived parts of the country have missed out on funding for too long, and that's why we're pleased to be able to rectify that and ensure, for example, through the Green Book reforms, that money goes to where it is most needed.
Sammy Wilson.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. And can I first of all welcome the fact that, at least in real terms, the Northern Ireland budget has been maintained over the spending period, though I would point out to the Chancellor that a 0.5% real increase will not enable the Northern Ireland Executive to match the real increase in spending in health and policing, which will be taking place in the rest of the United Kingdom. But can I emphasise again the preference that she has given in this budget to money for a GAA ground? In blundering into this issue, she has given to the Executive a massive financial headache, because she requires
the £50 million to be matched by funding elsewhere, requiring the Executive to find about £200 million to make up the deficit, raising expectations and, I believe, creating tension within the Executive as a result of this decision. And I think that it was wrong for her to try and interfere in the minutiae of spending of the Executive in this way. On a general point, I think that maybe in the autumn, many people who will welcome the headlines today will be regretting the tax increases that they're going to face to pay for the announcements today.
Well, the announcements today are all within the envelope that I've already set out through the tax increases and the changes to the fiscal rules in the autumn and then the decisions in the spring statement. All we have done today is allocate the envelope that we already set out. As I said at the time, public services would now need to live within the means that we set at that budget. This does not spend a single penny more or a single penny less than the money that was already allocated. And on the specific issue that he's raised, I'm very happy to pass on what he said to the Northern Ireland Secretary and to ensure that there's a meeting between the relevant Minister and the relevant Members of Parliament.
Andy McNair.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I wholeheartedly welcome this statement. It's a true Labour package that backs Britain and reverses years of declinism and the party's opposite. They seem to have given up on Britain. But I also particularly welcome... well, yes, declinism on the very benches. But I also particularly welcome the results of the Green Book review. This will get investment into the places that need it most. And in this regard, will the Chancellor agree with me that whilst it is big projects and city schemes that will get the headlines, it's absolutely vital that the full benefits of renewal are felt in small towns, like those that make up my constituency of Rosendale and Darwin, and that these previously left behind places must be at the forefront of our thinking as we develop local transport and infrastructure delivery plans.
I thank my honourable friend for his question. He's one of the many MPs who has spoken to me about the need to reform the Green Book, and I thank him for feeding in his concerns about the ways in which the Treasury has previously looked at requests for investment. And I'm pleased that for the people of Rosendale and Darwin that we can start making a difference to those communities that were forgotten about for 14 years under the Conservatives. I was also very pleased to be in his constituency at the end of last year to open the 100th banking hub on a local high street in his community.
John Milne.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I welcome the Government's decision to widen access to free school meals, a long-standing Liberal Democrat policy. But Castlewood Primary School, in my constituency of Horsham, tell me that they are currently losing 56p for every single meal they provide. Will the Chancellor undertake to fully fund school meals, or else is she asking schools to choose between teaching and eating?
I'm really pleased that what we've set out today will lift 100,000 children out of poverty by providing free school meals to an additional 500,000 children. Real terms funding for schools is increasing. Real terms of funding per pupil is increasing to ensure that schools are able to provide these free school meals and the teaching that our children need.
Matt Bishop.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Can I thank the Chancellor for the announcement today of the extra funding for crumbling schools. As we know, schools across the country have been left to fail under the last 14 years of the previous government. Can I ask the Chancellor how establishments such as Forest High School in my constituency, that is literally crumbling day by day and at serious risk of closure, can access those vital funds needed to remain that we can provide the service required for students in the Forest of Dean?
Well, I thank my honourable friend for raising those concerns about schools in the Forest of Dean and that school in particular. It's not good enough, the state that schools are in at the moment after 14 years of Conservative government. And after what they did in the 80s and 90s, I didn't think that even a Conservative government would leave schools in the state that they have. But your example is one that many MPs will be able to talk about in their constituencies as well. I will make sure that the Department for Education and the Education Secretary hears about the specific case that you've raised, because we do want to improve the conditions that our young children are taught in.
Gideon Amos.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker.
I thank the Chancellor for her statement. As well as freeing people up by tackling a social care crisis, the real way to get growth that we all want to see in this country is a target for publicly funded social homes, albeit I welcome the funding that has been found for housing, and funding for the infrastructure that communities want to see, which will unlock tens of thousands of homes. Wellington and Columpton Stations project was something I raised with the Chancellor last summer, and she said at the dispatch box that it would be going ahead because it had started. That project will bring £180 million of growth to the Cardiff-Bristol-Exeter corridor and generate hundreds of new jobs. Are my constituents right, and a genuine question to the Chancellor, are my constituents right to be dismayed that there is no mention of any South West projects in the statement today?
Well, last week we set out additional money for the Mayor for the West of England, and we've also announced today a fourfold increase in local transport funding, which is something that will be available for communities across the country. But the Honourable Member says that he wants to grow the economy. It's very disappointing then that the Liberal Democrats voted against the Planning and Infrastructure Bill yesterday, which will do exactly that.
Yuan Yang.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I strongly congratulate the Chancellor for the impact she's already had by reforming the way the Treasury works, in particular to unlock the capital investment that we need for the future of our economy. I also commend her for her commitment to our future generations through her funding for schools and extension of free school meals. Will the Chancellor continue to work with the Treasury to change the way that it appraises the benefits of human capital investment to ensure that there is sufficient funding, particularly for early intervention into SEND, particularly for local authorities like mine in Reading and Wokingham?
I thank my honourable friend for welcoming the reform we've brought in at the Treasury, the reform to the fiscal rules to unlock money for investment, the reform with financial transactions to enable more money to be spent through public finance institutions, and particularly the reform of the Green Book. My honourable friend is absolutely right to mention the importance of human capital, and that's why in the spending review today we've announced a significant investment in skills and also in ensuring that children are ready for schools through investment in the early years.
Will Forster.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. As the MP for Woking, I represent the most bankrupt and indebted local authority in the country. Therefore, I was very disappointed that it appeared the Chancellor didn't mention councils or local government once in her statement. I am more disappointed in the detail of the statement that the government is only investing an extra 1.1% in local government next year and the year after. What does the Chancellor say to councils across the country and to my constituents of Woking to justify that lack of investment?
Well, that's real terms increases in spending every year that this Labour government are giving to local authorities, and that compares to the Conservative Liberal Democrat administration from 2010 to 2015 that cut real spending by 2.9% every year. So I'm much happier to stand on my record as Chancellor than what the Liberal Democrats did when they had a chance of being in government.
Anna Dixon.
I'd like to thank the Chancellor for listening to the priorities of people in my constituency of Shipley and across the country and investing in our schools. It was great to see examples of the free breakfast clubs in action at Belden Glen and Beckfoot Priestthorpe recently. And I'm delighted to hear today that the Labour government will be putting some £2.3 billion to fix our crumbling schools. I visited Eldwick Primary School, where pupils were being taught in a temporary building with half their school out of action due to RAC. So can the Chancellor reassure those pupils in Eldwick that they can finally get back to their classrooms?
I'd like to thank my honourable friend for the passion with which she speaks about schools, which is something I very much share. That's why we are rolling out breakfast clubs at primary schools. It's why we are introducing free school meals for all children whose carers are on universal credit. It's why we're putting real terms funding in to our schools and also in per pupil funding. And it's why we are addressing the terrible situation of children being taught in temporary classrooms and crumbling schools. And I'll make sure that Department for Education hears about the experience in Shipley to hopefully ensure that that school is on the list.
Deirdre Costigan.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. A woman came to my surgery in Ealing Southall last Friday, where she showed me photos of the one bedroom she shares with her 4 children. 5 of them sharing beds, living with black mould on the walls, and all the kids having been hospitalised with no doubt related bronchial infections. It's temporary accommodation, but she's been there 10 years, and it's not unusual. Does the Chancellor agree that today's record £39 billion investment in social and affordable homes marks an end to Conservative austerity, an end to their failure to build, and that it will finally give hope to families stuck in damp, overcrowded flats in London and across the country?
It's stories like that which my honourable friend has just told, which is exactly why the Deputy Prime Minister and myself have prioritised investment into affordable homes, because nobody should have to live in those sorts of conditions in the 21st century. And with the reforms that we're making and the money that we're putting in, they won't have to for much longer.
Adam Thompson.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. And can I thank the Chancellor very much for her statement today. I particularly welcome all of the choices that she made, but especially the investments in Derby and the wider East Midlands, which are going to be an enormous boon to my constituents in Erewash. I also warmly welcome her commitment to end the use of asylum hotels in this Parliament. The Tory party let the asylum system get completely out of control. Does the Chancellor agree with me that investment now will result in savings of billions as the system gets fixed?
I thank my honourable friend for that intervention. The investment that we're putting into Derby and also into Nottinghamshire is significant. Small modular reactors, investment in defence, investment in fusion as well, creating good jobs, paying decent wages right across the East Midlands. And on the issue of asylum hotels, I don't think that taxpayers' money should be used for this purpose, and that's why we are reducing the cost of asylum accommodation, I think by around £1 billion during the course of this Parliament, and ending the use of asylum hotels.
Andrew Lewin.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. It is a source of pride to see a Labour Chancellor announce such a transformative programme for social housing. And my hope is that the boost to the Affordable Homes programme can also be used to help unlock stalled projects, like in my constituency in Welwyn Garden City, where's the Metropolitan Thames Valley development right adjacent to the station that needs to get motoring. So I want to thank the Chancellor for her investment today and ask if she agrees with me that our message to councils and housing associations is that we back you and now it is time for you to build.
The changes we've made to the planning system, the changes we are making through the Planning and Infrastructure Bill, gives the opportunity to build. And what we've done now is back that with money through the Affordable Homes Grant to ensure that we included in that is a good proportion of social and affordable housing for all the reasons that honourable members have mentioned, and particularly around this issue around housing around stations. There's huge potential there. The infrastructure is there. We want to have the housing there too.
Dr. Lauren Sullivan.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. Can I thank the Chancellor for the spending review? And after being a local councillor for nearly a decade, local austerity is over, so thank you. In Gravesham, Labour-led council, we have given thousands of permissions for stalled brownfield sites. Many of these are needed for the homes that we need in Gravesham. Can I seek reassurance from the Chancellor, Chancellor?
Okay, sorry about this. I have to... Right, sorry about that. I have to end the stream here. This is going on for too long. I would just want to say many thanks for everybody who's joined the chat and been watching today. If you want to become a member of my other smaller channel and see behind the scenes stuff and exclusive content first, and exclusive members only live streams from about £1 a month, you can join. There is a link in the chat. That'd be much appreciated. And yeah, like I said, thank you to everyone for watching, and we'll hopefully catch you all soon on the next live stream. All the best, and yeah, have a great week. I'm over now. Thank you very much to the local as well for being there, and anyone that's subscribed. Don't forget, if you're watching this back later, please hit the like.